Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I don't really care. I'm welcoming you not from Q's mother's basement, but from my own humble abode. I banished Q to Amsterdam to represent our team in the Bitcoin Amsterdam conference. So today you will be joined by myself and Chris. It's going to be a rip-roaring good time. Then later we're joined by American Hodl, raconteur extraordinaire, and Juneseth. And we'll be talking shit, screaming about stuff, and maybe making some jokes. We'll see. Chris, how you doing today?
Doing well, my friend. Doing well. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, it'll be good. All right. And just so for clarity, like I said, today we're doing, it's just Chris and I. Tomorrow we will be doing news and notes as well. And then we will be, there won't be a guest tomorrow because we're getting ready for Bitcoin Amsterdam. If you have not already got your tickets and you are in Europe, I suppose, you should absolutely go. You can use code BMLive to save 10% off of your ticket. Of course, we have the print mag, which is also incredible, and you should check out as well. But let's dive in. We got some super interesting stories today. The first one is talking about PayPal. This has been all over Twitter. It's fucking crazy. There is a new PayPal policy that permits the company to fine users $2,500 for misinformation. This came out over the weekend, and it is the most overt attempt to silence people via financial means that I have seen so far. They updated their user policy, published it. It was official. There was massive blowback, totally understandably and reasonably, from everybody that was like, time to cancel your PayPal account. And then they were like, oh shit, that was a mistake. They didn't even acknowledge that like it was the official policy. They were like, we don't even know how that happened. Like, well, whatever, don't worry about it. They were like, we're rolling it back. It was wrong. But their existing policy right now is still garbage. Specifically, going back, David Marcus, who is the former vice president of PayPal, and David Sack, who is was the founding COO of PayPal. They had some very choice words. Sack said, "Get your money out of PayPal right now," over Twitter. Marcus said, "It is hard for me to openly criticize a company I used to love and gave so much to, but PayPal's new AUP goes against everything I believe in. A private company now gets to decide to take your money if you say something they disagree with." Fucking crazy. As I said, they walked it back, claiming that it went out with incorrect information. However, friend of the show, Bitcoiner Susie B, pointed out that while they are backpedaling on the misinformation fine, you can still be fined $2,500 for damages to their brand, external damages, administrative costs, and or PayPal's business partners. So basically, they are still using a gigantic financial cudgel to try to browbeat people into playing by their rules, which is such an overreach. It's insane. Chris, what do you think?
I mean, if you thought PayPal's thing was bad, imagine CBDCs are like this times 10. So you can't just cancel I guess you can cancel your CBDC account, but that has consequences. If you're not using the CBDC the government says that you have to use, they could say, oh, well, we're going to cancel your mortgage. We're going to cancel, it's tied to a lot of other things. Like, you can take your business elsewhere. You can use a superior currency such as Bitcoin. This is where things get really crazy. P, I'd also love your thoughts. So while PayPal is a private entity, many of these altcoins, we don't have to name them, can be seen as private companies or they're centralizing control. What are your thoughts? How is PayPal different than any of these other altcoins in theory? They could stop or change your transactions and stuff or deduct things from your account, basically.
Yeah. So what you're pointing out is that, Bitcoin was the original. It is, laser focused on, disintermediating financial transactions and being censorship resistant and being decentralized. Bitcoin is designed to allow people to transact, as little or as much value as you want or need to without the need for an intermediary, without the need for a bank, without the need for someone who has to say, you're a good person, you get to do this, right? We like to say Bitcoin is for enemies, and that is a beautiful thing. All these other cryptocurrencies, which we also call shitcoins, are essentially attempting to kind of affinity scam on Bitcoin and be like, oh yeah, Bitcoin's great, but my thing improves it in this other way. And then they obscure the fact that most of them are very centralized, and basically, as you're pointing out, open you up to these kinds of attacks as well, in theory. I think there is a huge difference here, though. Whereas, whereas these other shit coins are still seen as being, I would say, risky. And even though they claim that they're not, even though, Ethereum claims that it's totally decentralized, which is totally bullshit, PayPal is an extremely successful existing financial entity that is used by a massive, amount of the population. They're very well established. And for them to be trying to officially make it possible for them to, implement and exert this kind of Orwellian control is pretty crazy to me. Like, in Ethereum bullshit land, they're still at least claiming that these things are true. Whereas PayPal being this overt is pretty wild to me.
Yeah, and I know that there was also people talk over the weekend that they were trying to delete their accounts, and they were saying they're having issues deleting it. I know we checked today, and it seems that function was restored, that people could delete their accounts. But yeah, it definitely seems it's not a good sign when they were trying to, at least at some point during this weekend, can't really confirm, but it seems like they were restricting people from deleting their accounts. So things must be really bad, and they're trying to put out fires as fast as they can.
Yeah, it also could be that, just from a technical perspective, who the fuck knows? But one, that could be, sort of a misunderstanding on people's part. It also could be that so many people were trying to delete their accounts that, their system got tied up, which I'd love to imagine. But I also just want to go all the way back to something that I said earlier, which is that the fact that, David Marcus, again, former vice president of PayPal, and David Sack, who is the founding COO of PayPal, are shitting all over PayPal, that is extreme. That tells you things are real fucking bad, because they are, they're still financially incentivized to promote PayPal, right? I'm sure that they still have massive amounts of stock options or an equity. And even if they don't, it's a thing that they've devoted a huge amount of their life to. So for them to say those things is pretty remarkable and indicative of how fucked the situation is.
Yeah,
definitely. But they're not the first. This is how it starts, right? It's going to continue. We're going to see more and more of these types of things. PayPal just overplayed its hand a little bit. But as you pointed out, CBDCs are going to be the next step. It's going to just be this cascade of probably more subtle systems that are designed to enforce compliance.
Definitely.
Let's go to the next story.
All right. So this is not a joke, P, and audience and listeners. They just gave out a Nobel Peace Prize. Who'd they give it out to? None other than Ben Bernanke, the old chairman of the Federal Reserve. He won it just recently, within this week. He won it for the Nobel Peace Prize or Nobel Prize for Economics. And under the guise that he helped navigate the 2007 to 2009 great financial crisis with guys and humility and saving the American people and central banking. So, Pete, what are your thoughts on that? Is that just the biggest load of crap you've ever heard?
What the actual fuck? How the fuck is that a Nobel Peace Prize worthy thing? To say nothing of, the fact that Ben Bernanke is a shitheel, and the the great financial crisis was a disaster of massive proportions in terms of it was kind of I would argue it was a miscarriage of justice. Obama came in and was like, they will pay, we're going to make these people pay. And then of course, no one went to jail and everything was well, I said that, but also, yeah. And then it was a lot of hand waving and bullshit. But
it might as well just say sponsored by Goldman Sachs. And
yeah, exactly.
I will correct you. There was one guy that went to jail for 18 months, but he was probably in a comfy white collar prison. And he was like a junior exec. It wasn't even you go for the head of the head of it. It's I feel bad for that guy. He's the guy that got pinned on it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is absolutely insane to me. But there is one aspect of this that I think is interesting, right? You might read this and think, oh man, it's ridiculous that they're giving the Nobel Peace Prize for a financially related thing, to say it inelegantly. I think a lot of people are having that reaction. I actually think that this is a significant acknowledgement that financial systems are as significant and can create as much loss of life as kinetic warfare. And I think that's interesting and important because when we talk about things like we just did with PayPal, you need to view those kinds of actions as a type of attack and a type of warfare. There is a reason that the U.S. and so many other countries use financial and economic sanctions against countries they don't like. It's because those actions are more palatable to the people of the world, but they can be just as significant and just as aggressive, but they're more subtle. It's like using taxes to steal people's wealth, using inflation to steal people's wealth rather than the more overt, taxes. But they can be just as damaging.
Yeah, let's hit what's going on with LDK, P.
Let's do it. So Matt Corallo, who is a contributor to Bitcoin Core, incredible developer, spoke at Bitcoin 2022. He sent out a tweet over the weekend chastising GitHub for essentially deleting an account. And I wasn't able to figure out exactly whose account got deleted, but he said, no, GitHub, nuking a user and removing all history that they ever had on the site as if it hadn't existed doesn't only affect that user, it screws over random unrelated projects that the user contributed to. He specifically was citing there was a part of the LDK code base. LDK stands for Lightning Development Kit, and it is a set of it's a set of basically functions, code that any software engineer can use to really easily and effectively plug into the Lightning ecosystem, the Lightning protocol, and develop applications on top of it using best practices. So SDKs, you may have heard that term, are really important for empowering developers to start building out tools across all different aspects of software engineering. There's like an Oculus Rift SDK, and all a lot of different applications and tools have SDKs. Anyway, LDK is awesome. There's also BDK for Bitcoin. Matt Corallo is one of the lead people on the LDK platform, but I digress. The interesting thing here is that Git, which is a system that allows people to track changes in software development and other projects as well, is and track revision history, is a really, really, really important aspect of open source development. GitHub is a separate, privately owned company that hosts Git repositories and added some really interesting innovations on it, like forking and all these other things, and made it more social. But GitHub is, as I said, a private company. They're owned by Microsoft, and they take action sometimes for financial reasons that actually are harmful to the open source community. And so it's really important that when we talk about decentralization, we're not only talking about decentralization of financial systems, but also decentralizing and finding other ways of hosting open source code like Bitcoin Core, like LDK and other pieces of software.
Yeah, it's a real shame. I know Odell brought up this point when talking about GitHub. Like GitHub's like a very there's always a trade-off between privacy and convenience, and or security and convenience. And while GitHub kind of seemed to be the happy medium, now we're seeing as we saw with the Tornado Cash developer and developers, anyone that worked on that project, they suspended their accounts and it destroyed anything else they were working on. We're now seeing it with this LDK developer, or he touched LDK and it ruined the repository for them. So I know Odell brought up that we're trying to build a parallel financial system and parallel systems in general, whether it's with the Beef Initiative and all that. You do in a way have to set up servers. I mean, that's what a node is, but basically setting up your own server for Git repositories for projects. You hate to do this because it is less convenient. Yes, it requires memory and storage space, but it seems to be the only way that it's really going to win and live on is by doing this. And I know many projects. I know Seed Signer is very good about this. I know Bitcoin Core. There are people and projects that their sole responsibility is for backing up So in case GitHub or a more convenient one goes down, they have the latest revision. And, you know, whether they have it on a 24-hour time frame or 12-hour refresh rate or week refresh rate, you know, oh, like if GitHub were to ban us tomorrow, we only lose 24 hours or 12 hours or, you know, the last however many hours. So, and then also the best thing about Bitcoin Core is it is very distributed, probably the most distributed open source project. And many people, we could repiece it together from if that were to go down. But yeah, it's definitely a risk if they were to stop these things.
Yep. Yeah, I think, you know, it's easy to kind of rail against these types of decisions, but we should just expect that like a company that's owned by Microsoft is going to do, like, it's going to make sure it's complying with the regulatory framework. So though we can rail about it, the most important thing that we can do, to your point, is to help build out and support decentralized open source systems. But let's keep going though. You got an interesting story.
Yeah, so we got a really cool story. I'm going to play this video first, and then we can talk about it afterwards. So let me play it. It's about a minute long.
Guys, we got some coins, some pesos, 1,000 pesos.
1,000 pesos, about 25 cents US.
Okay, we're in the bar in Medellin.
Medellin bar. Wait one second, let me pan around.
Let's try this machine.
Relax machine. This machine takes coins. This is 500 pesos. You put in a 500 pesos, that's like 12 and a half cents roughly.
Let me open my...
So now it wants a QR code.
Create invoice.
So he's creating a QR code invoice to receive.
There is no way it's working. Let's see.
No KYC. It reads the QR code.
Boom.
Boom. 497.
No KYC from
Sats.
pesos to sats, bro. Awesome.
That is ridiculous, dude.
That's awesome, bro. I love it.
So what's going on here?
Yeah, so basically what was going on there, they are in a bar in Medellin, Colombia. They're using, it's called K1 Mini is the name of that Bitcoin ATM. And they received the equivalent of, they put in the 500 sats equivalent of Colombian pesos, and they only got charged 3 cents to get 497 of non-KYC sats. Like, think about like how crazy that is. That's fractions of a penny to get non-KYC sats. So the margin is great on that. I mean, 3 cents of 500, I can't even do the mental math, but very, very small amount. You know, that's better margins than a lot of the other one. Obviously, it seemed it was coin-based or like coins receiving. I'm not sure if that machine could do dollars. And then he sent a Lightning invoice on Blue Wallet and received those sats right to his wallet without any identification requirements. I mean, literally, there was just the Lightning address that he used to receive it. But very, very cool. I'm really excited for projects like this. Yeah, any thoughts there, Pete?
No, I think it's great. I mean, I think the more types, I don't know anything about this project specifically, but I think it's very cool that, you know, you're actually able to put in physical coins. Like, I love the idea of there being like Coin Center-esque, you know, coin collection systems where it just gets converted into sats immediately. And I agree with everything you said. It's cool. I think the more types of systems like this we have, the better off we will be as humans. And in the US, we benefit from from operating under the world's reserve currency. But I think this is even more important in other countries where that is not the case. So exciting stuff. I'm going to move us along though. Sadder news. It was posted over the weekend that I believe it's pronounced Ziya Sadr was arrested. He was one of the pillars of the Iranian Bitcoin community and a very prolific freedom advocate. He was arrested as part of the ongoing freedom protests in Iran. Now, a lot of different people tweeted about this. Samurai Wallet said, this is very bad news. He's contributed enormously to advance education on Bitcoin privacy. We hope he's released safety soon. If anyone has any additional info, please DM. We want to help in any way we can. Safety Moose was tweeting about it. And all we know at this point is that he was arrested by security forces. And we're bringing this up just to highlight that in a lot of places, supporting Bitcoin as a tool for freedom is a dangerous thing. And it takes a lot of courage. And, as we go forward, as this battle for our financial freedom heats up, it's going to, the stakes get higher and higher. And I think it's really important that we honor and do everything we can to support and fight for the people that are on those front lines. So, Chris, I'm curious if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, no, it's very sad. I know Alex Gladstein, he talks about in Check Your Financial Privilege, just how fortunate, him being an American, P and myself being Americans as well, how fortunate we are to live in a country that is so free or built on the ideals of freedom. Gladstein's like, test for how free you are is if you can criticize the leaders that are currently in power without getting jailed or killed or having money taken from you. You're pretty free. What he basically means is like you and I can criticize Trump, Biden, Clinton, Bush, Obama, pretty freely in this day and age without expecting backlash from them. I know people point to people like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange that window of freedom may be shrinking, or we might be becoming less free as a nation and country. I know many people in the Bitcoin space are fighting to keep it that way. But yeah, it's very, very sad. And people across the world, I actually really wish Q was here to talk on this story, being from Iran. But yeah, it's a very big shame. I forgot if you mentioned or not, but it seems that also his Twitter account was deactivated from a trusted source. I don't know what that means, if that's just like the Iranian government shutting down like the ISP or the connection to it. But it's currently deactivated or it didn't seem like it was deleted, but it was definitely deactivated. I wish him and his family well, and I hope this is resolved quickly with minimal violence or minimal time of him being in jail. So, more somber news, unfortunately. So, this past weekend, specifically October 8th, was the 1-year anniversary of JStark's death. Now, who was JStark? JStark was a privacy, freedom, and Second Amendment advocate that was fighting the tyranny of the state through open source nature of 3D printing of guns. He was famous for his design of the FGC-9, which is one of the most popular semi-automatic rifles by the 3D printing community. And ultimately, we talk about the risks of KYC and AML laws. It appears that they claim that the way that he died of a heart attack, and he was a heart attack induced by stress. He was a 28-year-old male that passed away, like I said, last year. He was based in Germany, or at least that's where he was when he was caught. And it seems to be linked that the way that he was found, because a lot of his videos, he's wearing a mask, he's wearing sunglasses. He has a voice alternator. He has actually gloves covering his hands and everything. Like, he was very big into privacy advocacy, or a big private advocate, and not doxing himself. Coinbase and eBay saw they flagged as suspect transactions from an account, and they were able to link the two. That they ultimately found to be linked to JStark, and they were able to use that information, or local authorities were, in order to find him and ultimately custody him. And in the process of custodying him, he ultimately passed away. It is very, very sad. He was definitely one pushing for freedom. He was based in Germany, and like I said, in Germany and Europe especially has very, very strict gun laws. I know Switzerland, and there's a few countries that are exceptions to that rule, but he was trying to do it in free and open source way, and he very well knew the risks that he took by doing this. But it is a real shame, and he talks about, like, in this one interview that's very well known that many people have pulled clips from, he talks about, it's not about having guns to harm other people. And the interviewer questions him and says, like, aren't you worried about your technology getting out and killing your parents, your siblings, your girlfriend, whatever it may be? And he says that's the risk I'm willing to take. He's like, the reason I am doing this, and specifically printing guns or trying to make guns available for everyone, is to fight the tyranny of the state. And that's really what he advocates for, because if you do not have a way to defend yourself, that can be taken advantage of. It's kind of one of the sad realities or sad truths that, if you do not have power, or you do not have a way to defend yourself, the state or a larger entity can come and bully you. And I'm not saying that I advocate for that. I do not. But it's the sad reality or the fact of today. P, I know I talked for a while there, but if there's anything else you want to add to this.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, one thing that I do want to point out is it seems very interesting that a 28-year-old man, suddenly had a heart attack while, in custody and being custodied. Who knows? I'm sure that people have looked into or have a better understanding of his previous health, and medical situation. But whenever I hear that kind of thing, I'm like, that sounds really suspicious.
Yeah, I wish him and his family nothing but the best. And like I said, just kind of celebrating the 1 year anniversary of his death, unfortunately, but just saying a prayer for him and his family. And, his legacy lives on through the 3D printing community. And I know Joe Rogers had a great talk at Bitcoin Amsterdam talking about the talk was specifically coined the cost of violence is going to zero, and what he means is like a cost of defending yourself is kind of how he coined it. So
wait, you said that's at Bitcoin Amsterdam?
Or not Bitcoin Amsterdam. My apologies. At BitBlock Boom is where Joe Rogers had it. But yeah, I'll definitely link that in the show notes. It was a great talk and a great show to watch. I mean, a lot of people got a lot from it. So
yeah. Well, our final story today is talking about over the weekend LND, which is when we talk about the Lightning Network, there is Bitcoin Core, which is layer 1 sound money technology. Then on top of that, we have the Lightning Network, which is what's called the layer 2 technology. Now, the Taj Raja and the others who initially published the paper on and kind of proposed the Lightning Network, they kind of created a very general spec for how Lightning protocol could work, and then people have built on that. So there are 3 major implementations of the Lightning Network. So that means that there are 3 different entities that produce software that connects to an existing Bitcoin Core node and allows you to send and receive Lightning transactions, and they're all interoperable. That is Lightning Labs, LND, that's Blockstream's CLN, Core Lightning, and then there's also Async by a French company. And there's Eclair by Async, which is a French company. And LND over the weekend had an issue where somebody had created which I love this so much, a 999 key multi-sig channel. So they were testing out some of these really cool new things that you can do with Taproot and Schnorr, which were implemented in Bitcoin Core recently. And one of those things is that Taproot allows you to have many signers without it increasing the cost of that transaction. So they were testing this out. They did a 998 of 999 multi-sig Lightning channel, and that apparently broke the LND implementation of Lightning Labs LND implementation. So the end all of this, or the conclusion of this, is if you are running LND on a node, if you're running an Umbrel, make sure that you update your node ASAP. Voltage and sent out a tweet about this. Roast Beef, who works at Lightning Labs, sent out a tweet, and there's a lot of stuff going around Twitter. But the takeaway here is, if you're running LND on a node, make sure you update it ASAP so that you are not affected by this issue.
Yeah, I want to comment. Like, some of the community was like, "This guy should have never done this. He should have never done that." I think it's awesome that he did it, because it's like testing the limitations of the network and the software and all that. And then 2, like, let's just say this guy was a state actor. It's not like, oh, like he should have never done that. Like, if the state's going to do something to thwart a network, they're going to do something like this or do things like this. And the last thing is, Bitcoin is free and open source, and anyone can choose how to use their money however they see fit. They want to buy a house, they want to buy a car with it, they want to send it to someone, they want to send it to an address that doesn't exist, like that no one has the private keys for. With Bitcoin, you can do whatever you want with it, however you see fit. And so I think it's awesome that he did this. I was just trying to figure out, how long does it take you to create a multi-sig channel of 999? I know he used a script to do it, but
oh yeah, No, I'll tell you exactly how he did it. He had an army of orphans. He kidnapped them from an orphanage and then gave every single one of them a hardware device. Had them sign in, set them up like a conga line. They went in, they signed the PSBT, the partially signed Bitcoin transaction, and then that's how I put it through. Of course, I'm kidding. As you said, this was all done via script. I completely agree with you. It's hilarious to me that people are like, "Oh my God, this person is trying to break everything." That is not the case. It is super important that we are constantly testing and trying to push the boundaries of the Lightning Network, the protocols, the implementations of the Lightning Network, because if we are not doing that within our community, as you said, guaranteed state actors and nefarious people will. Bitcoin and the Lightning Network are for enemies. We are laser focused on making this as robust as possible. It is one of the distinguishing characteristics between Bitcoin and all the other shit coins is that we actually care about the things like security, decentralization, censorship resistance. So no, I think this is fucking awesome. Also, Rindell, who's a good friend of the show, he and I used to always joke that like we were going to do like live. I think he actually did this recently with somebody, like, you know, like a 24 of 25 multi-sig via Taproot. So like this kind of experimentation, super important and should absolutely be supported. Also, this is an issue that that LND had. Notable is that the other implementations of the Lightning Network, or the other major implementations, Claire and CLN, were not affected by this. This was an issue that was specific to LND. They patched it immediately, and we're good to go. But no, this is totally part of the normal experimentation process, and fucking awesome.
Also, I don't know if you noted it. Like, I think obviously to send a Bitcoin transaction, it's based on using data, and that data, you know, is how you're charging fees, sats per VByte. I think the equivalent was less than $5 to open up a 999 multi-sig channel. And that's like all the data of like, you know, these 999 entities, you know, you need 998 of them to sign it, which is pretty, like, think about how robust that is. To open up this gigantic multi-sig vault was less than $5 or US equivalent of.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's specifically because of the benefits of and the improvements with Taproot. So it's good stuff. It's important. There's a great joke that I love. So this is basically, you know, it's QA, right? It's quality assurance testing. And there's a joke that's a QA engineer walks into a bar, orders a beer, orders 0 beers, orders 9,999 beers, orders a lizard, orders -1 beers, orders, and it's just a random string of characters. First real customer walks in and asks where the bathroom is. The bar bursts into flames, killing everyone. And this is a reference to, you know, in software engineering, you're constantly trying to figure out the edge cases, the unusual circumstances, and make sure that your software can effectively handle those. So that's all this is. It's QA, free QA testing.
Definitely. Do we want to go to a commercial break real quick and figure out where our guests are, and then we'll come back?
No, let's just keep riffing for a little bit. We're going to be joined hopefully in the very near future by Junseth and American Hodl. We're waiting for them. But in the meantime, Chris and I are just going to hang out, shoot the shit, talk about stuff. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat.
Did you, P, as we are waiting, hold on, there is one thing. Where was this? Let me see if I can find it. Sing and dance while I find this. Oh, this is great. I found it. The chief technical officer of Microsoft Azure, so high up in the fiat world, he basically tweeted out yesterday evening, though it doesn't use proof of work anymore, a simple Ethereum transaction executes hundreds of thousands of times, requires tens of megabytes of storage, and consumes on that order in network bandwidth. I don't understand how anyone can claim that is an eco-friendly computing. Obviously, he's poking fun of people, Ethereum changing from proof of work to proof of stake, and claiming that it's more eco-friendly now. And a lot of people also pointed out that a lot of the miners that were on the Ethereum network have pivoted over to the proof of work protocol, so Ethereum Classic, in order to do that. So it's just very, very funny that, you know, they're like, oh, we use 99.5% less electricity, but when you look at like the mining rate of all the other cryptocurrencies, it's just like skyrocketing up, which is very, very funny. Any thoughts there, P?
None whatsoever. Our guests are almost ready. They're Junseth is, you know, taking off his clothes, scrubbing his body, waxing it, putting on boxers, putting on the pants, removing his pants. He'll be with us shortly. Let's go to commercial break.
All right.
And we'll be back.
Sounds good.
All right, my friends, we are still having some slight technical difficulties. Our guest will be joining us shortly.
Oh, I think there's Junseth popping in right now. Give him a sec to get his camera set up.
Junseth, it's good to have you. Turn your camera on, and I want to hear how you're doing.
Ooh, look, it didn't cover it all.
Oh my gosh, you cut your hair off.
Yeah, I'm all like white underneath though, because look at this. I have to get some sun now.
Yeah, you got to sun your balls
Got
and
to
also
shade.
Yeah, wait. So
Shade
wait,
this
wait.
part of my face.
This is wild. What inspired this horrible decision? I'm sorry, I just got to call it like it is.
Well, I was in prison for a little while for doing some pretty bad things, and I got in with the group, and they told me that to get out alive, I'd have to cut my hair. So I figured I'd do that. I did it.
Did you have to lose your dignity in order to do that? But or no?
No. I just had to have anal sex with a few of them, but that was fine. But no, it was it's a group of white guys, but they told me I presented as white enough. So
I see.
Yeah. Kind of like
well,
QT.
I support you, and no judgments here. This is a judgment-free zone, so we're glad to have you. Thank you for joining us. We're still trying to figure out where the fuck American Hodl is, but he will be joining us.
He's nowhere. I couldn't join. I couldn't do it, and then when I typed the link in, it didn't work. But then when I clicked the link, it did. So it's clearly user error.
Well, I forgive you for not having hair. I do not forgive you for fucking it up.
Who's this new guy? He doesn't look Iranian to me.
Yes, this is Chris. This is our producer. He's the man behind the curtain, making sure all the buttons work. He does this a lot of the time.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. Hey, Chris.
The man behind the mirror. We had to let the Iranian, go free into the wilderness to Bitcoin Amsterdam.
I sent him to Amsterdam. We got the conference happening there soon.
Is it safe to go to Amsterdam as an Iranian?
I think so. I hope so.
We'll find out after this week. we didn't figure this out beforehand, but we'll see.
He's going to be so high. He's not going to do any work.
No,
Have you
he
seen
is.
His hair? He looks. No,
he's one of those people that can smoke like a gallon of weed. That's the official drug dealer measurement, and still be totally sober. Also, no, leave it. It's so much better. Our guest candy. Oh, you piece of shit! You moved it
better.
Well, there's a little. So for the guests, I'm gonna blow you up. No, oh god damn it. So the first time we had Juneseth on, he was in a completely like crazy room. There was like underpants and all sorts of shit everywhere, and gnomes. And when he first joined, there was a corner of the room that was. I'm
in a storage closet, if you will. It's pretty. It's pretty. Do you guys talk about Bitcoin on here or what?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, okay.
And speaking of which,
you go.
Yeah, I was going to say I want to give context to who you are. You've joined the show. This will be the third time.
Whom you are.
To whom I speak. Juneseth, you have been in the Bitcoin space for a very long time. Some would say too long. I would disagree with those people. I think it's great.
Well, they're right.
You are. And you also are one of the pioneers of some of the, what I would argue is kind of the earliest fundamental tenets of Bitcoin culture. Can you take a minute to describe your journey to Bitcoin, what it was like getting a traumatic brain injury, and then, creating Bitcoin Uncensored and the stuff you did with that?
Yeah. So, I think the thing I'm known for is Bitcoin Uncensored. Bitcoin Uncensored was a very, very popular at the time Bitcoin show, Bitcoin podcast, which is interesting because it didn't get that many listens compared to these like other podcasts that you think of as very popular, but it's kind of become a mainstay because we basically documented Bitcoin week to week and everything that was going on. Just looked at the news, talked about it, and then made fart jokes. So we highlighted a lot of Bitcoin toxicity. We really thought that that it was an important part of Bitcoin's ecosystem. What's come to be known as Bitcoin toxicity. We called it, Socratic method and such, but Bitcoin toxicity has become a thing that everybody's talked about now and everyone hates, but they're wrong. It's very important. It's the white blood cell of Bitcoin. The white blood cell. Oh wow!
Oh shit!
Hodl's here. He's white.
Hey,
He's a
man,
white
you
blood
can't
cell.
call them white blood cells. Racism.
Oh shit!
Not
all right.
racism, Hodl.
Hodl,
Okay.
welcome
Hodl,
to
you're
the
looking
show.
good.
Your camera looks
Hodl,
like
you're
garbage.
a little hairy.
God, how many times can you change the aspect ratio? My friends, we did it. We fucking did it. If you're still here after this,
Are
we've
we
got
the most
American Hodl.
unreliable guests, P?
No, that's not. No. We've had some way more unreliable ones. I'll talk
I
about
would
them.
just like to say, listen, listen to all 6.15 this fine program. I apologize for. Was I late? I don't even know if I was late. Was I late?
You were exactly on time. Again,
There you
for
go.
our guests, we have Juneseth, culture pioneer, creator of Bitcoin Uncensored. You guys did, my favorite claim to fame of yours is that you did, your podcast interviews. Jesus Christ. You did podcast interviews in the bathroom. And of course, we have also joining us American Hodl, who is one of the other, I would say, pillars of the Bitcoin culture community. You helped an old lady across the street one time, Hodl. You've done some other stuff. Why don't you tell the people who you are and what you're about?
Listen, I'm I'm American Maximalist. I think the viewers of this show know that by now. Listen, one Litecoin equals one Litecoin. Trading at $11.10. You don't need to look it up. I'm pretty sure that's the. I just think for me, Litecoin is good because it's like Bitcoin's test. It's like Bitcoin without a lot of the bad vibes. So I think that's why I'm into it. And yeah, I was real active on Twitter from 2018 to 2020. Started like a Project Mayhem style Fight Club thing. It happened. I was in a fugue state at that time. I just think that 100% Litecoin is the way to. I'm thinking about rebranding myself to Litecoin Phoenix.
How is your internet?
Anyway,
you are a wealthy man, sir. You rode around on a fucking Vespa scooter.
Again?
You forced your family. You forced your family to ride around on the back of that scooter with you like a little monkey.
Hodl, did you ever dress your scooter up like Yoshi and then you wear like a Mario?
It's a great question.
That's what
Hodl,
I would do.
Please answer the question.
No.
I'm here in my parking lot. I want everyone to notice my new car. It's my Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. I bought it. My condo association is complaining. They say that there's no work trucks allowed. And I tell them that my work has nothing to do with wieners. So it's not a work truck.
That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Other than the brothel, but this, not this kind of wiener,
You should go to Amsterdam, the red light district. Drive around in that truck. I bet you'd.
This is what anyone wondering what Bitcoin riches can afford you. I mean, what do you think? You guys don't want Lambos. Look what I got.
You know that the Oscar Mayer mobile, it's like a great honor. You have to apply to drive that shit around. You have to do an exhaustive application process. They make sure, they need to see your body in all of its glory. They do lie detector tests, psychological profiles.
Yeah. Or you can buy it on autotrader.com.
That's right.
Yeah, but you still have to do all that stuff.
You have to show your wiener as part of the interview process because they need to know your pack.
Yep,
that's right. Yeah.
That's right. Hodl, your audio is out of sync, but at least unlike last time, we can understand you. So I'm gonna just roll with it.
Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna log out and log back in. I hope this.
Good guy.
It's not gonna fix.
It's not gonna.
It hasn't been fixed in 4 months.
I know. He's.
Why do you let him on here? What does he add?
I don't know. Look,
other than height.
Look, here's the thing.
He's very tall. Have you seen him in real life?
Yes, he's a monster.
He's 9'8".
That's true. That's true.
Verifiably. And his height is 10 feet.
Our producer Chris is supposing that he downgraded his internet because we're in a bear market. I think that's probably realistic. People wouldn't necessarily know this if they haven't, seen either of you before, but you are, in addition to being degenerates, rapscallions, meme masters, you are also both incredibly intelligent and have a lot of really interesting things to say about Bitcoin. So I know you don't want to do this. I am going to force you to actually have a meaningful conversation as part interspersed with the randomness and insanity. I'm curious what you think about the fact that.
Well, I was nothing. Go on.
No, please. This is. Think of this as like a clubhouse conversation.
I'm just
I
thinking.
expect
I'm
you
just
to interrupt
like
me
the
constantly.
idea that whistling while you snore is like, no one does that.
You know, that's a great point, and it is directly related to the conversation we were just having. So
Yeah.
I'm going to
Okay, go
address
on.
it. Yeah. Nobody whistles while they snore.
Yo, how is this? Is this better?
Much
It
better,
actually is.
infinitely
Holy
better.
shit! What did
I'm
he
on a
do?
computer instead of a cell phone. Hey.
Yeah, that'll do it every time, man.
What
Also,
a
you
cock!
gotta,
What a cock! He knew that. Like he was on a cell phone. You are a.
I've been on a cell
cock.
phone every one of these streams forever. Yeah.
I'm so angry. I'm so furious.
And you know what's
Last
the
time,
computer?
let me
the
get up
computer
and
was-
see if let me get up and see if this fixes it. Oh,
I
it's
didn't even-
not fixed.
I didn't even change position. The computer was right here the whole time.
Yeah.
And the microphone. I had it all plugged in.
You're a piece of shit.
Anyway, listen, man. When you invest in Litecoin the way
Oh,
I
good
do,
God.
you deal with shit. You deal with shit like traumatic brain injury. That was something that happened to me early on, and I've overcome it and become worth several thousands of dollars from
I
Litecoin.
should have taken my
So-
guns out and started cleaning them on stream.
Yeah. You also should have had the background that was poorly hidden. That's a pretty good flex. But let's take this as an opportunity. Hodl, you're being satirical when you promote Litecoin, which is hilarious.
Right.
Let's actually educate. Let's use this as an opportunity to educate people. Tell us the story of Litecoin, what it is, and why it's a shitcoin.
So Litecoin was created by Satoshi Nakamoto's third cousin, Charlie Lee. And he created it as a way to scam people that work in lawn services out of their hard-earned money.
You're doing it.
That's ridiculous, Otto.
I'm drinking. That's mezcal. Now, look. Coinbase is a platform. It's a casino. And Coinbase has a long and sordid history of creating or supporting the creation of shitcoins. Things that
I took a picture of the room and then I put it on the green screen.
It works.
So this is like what you would see if there were no green screen. It's like a picture of the thing that's behind the green screen on the green screen.
I'm a huge fan. I appreciate you making the sacrifice for us. It's not as good as Eric Kaysen. We had Eric Kaysen on recently, and his room was, he had a vacuum just like sitting in the middle of the room, and we talked for a while about how awesome his vacuum was.
All right.
But it's you're getting there. You're getting there. Anyway, Litecoin. Charlie Lee worked at Coinbase. Basically, Coinbase makes a bunch of money when they promote a random shitcoin, and then all the shit happens.
Yeah, let's talk about innovation in Litecoin. One of the dope innovations was Charlie Lee, when he was employee number 3 at Coinbase. He realized that Litecoin had this problem in that it had no exchange volume. So he came up with a really innovative solution in which he put in a trading bot that sold Litecoin back and forth to itself. And then later Coinbase was fined like $11 million for this. But Charlie, being, perspicacious and intelligent, he got out long before that happened. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of innovation in Litecoin the more I think about it,
I agree. I think it's a lot of innovation designed to take money, as you said, out of the pockets of the, lawn care specialists who still continue to invest in Litecoin, like yourself, and put it directly into the pockets of Charlie Lee. And
by the way, I should say the word allegedly, because this is a conspiracy theory. Part about being a Litecoiner is we're really into conspiracy theories. Do you know that me and Junseth, actually, this is a good thing to discuss. Me and Junseth recently saw a very interesting video. And, we had been a little bit skeptical about QAnon before we saw this video. But once we saw this video, we decided that we were full on QAnoners. And the video is called Frazzle Drip. Maybe Junseth would like to explain what this video entails. Some people say that if you watch it, you will rip your face off and die. That didn't happen to me yet, but it's only been 6 days. So if it's like a Ring thing where it's 7 days, maybe tomorrow I'm fucked. I don't know.
P, it's a video of Hillary Clinton ripping the face off of a Haitian child and putting it on her own face.
Yeah.
This is my kitchen.
I have so many questions.
If you want to Google it, Google Frazzle Drip, #stay woke. and you're not going to find it because it doesn't exist, but it exists in your mind. And if you
Hammersaw
think about
says
it,
that 50% of BTC volume is fake.
well, that's true.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah.
I agree. Absolutely.
Listen, as a Litecoiner, you think I'm going to argue that point? Of course, it's
Sure.
fake. Whole thing is fake.
Sure.
It was invented by a fake Japanese guy.
It's happening in Web. It's happening in Web 3. Hammersaw.
That's right.
I've changed your title to Frazzle Drip Maximalist.
Hell yeah. That's true. Hashtag
Yeah, this
say
is
what.
all this is all great content.
Yeah.
I hope our audience is learning and listening and absorbing valuable information.
Where's that guy with the frizzy hair who's normally here?
Oh yeah, I banished him
I
to
think his
Amsterdam.
name is like R or S.
Yep, it's close.
Something like that.
You're super close. Yeah, we have a conference happening in a couple of days in Amsterdam, and I sent him there because.
No, that's you. What's
If
his
you
name?
put the whole microphone in your mouth, it's
V.
hard to breathe. Just so you know. So that's
Wait, was that to me or to Hodl?
I was letting you both know. If you do that, it actually
Wow. Wow.
Bro, that's a $450 microphone. That's
seductive.
extreme.
it's actually kind of it's sweet on the tongue. I didn't expect that.
You should probably invest in like a luxury line of, genitalia-based microphone covers. I think that'd be a pretty.
It's actually not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea at all. It's not a bad idea at all. Phone, do like a windscreen. Yeah. You could make a lot of fucking money with that. Also, if you could somehow like swap them in and out, like while somebody was on, like live, you could be like.
My goal on the stream is usually to make people stop watching. Have we done that?
We've done a pretty good job of it. We're down by like 10-20%. If you're still here,
that's dope.
Yeah, you're
okay, guys. Now let's get into the real stuff.
Yeah.
Secrets
So one thing I did want to.
I'm going to talk more about Litecoin now. Chris,
God
the producer, says the views are down, so we need to give the people the Litecoin content they came for.
Fucking damn. All right,
listen,
I want to be clear. I know you guys hate this. Litecoin is a shitcoin. Do not invest in Litecoin, despite what Hodl will tell you here. He's doing that satirically.
Do you know that you can
I agree with P. P is giving great investment advice.
Oh, do you know that right now? Do you know that right now you can purchase 167 Litecoin for $12?
Yeah, there we go. What? It was the wrong. It was the wrong noise. I wanted this one. Yeah. All right, Hal. We're letting you back on. Show yourself some respect and your children.
Have you watched the Daryl Brooks trial at all, Hodl?
What is the Daryl? No, I've never even heard of it.
He's the guy that mowed over those people in Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah. I like how the reporting on him conveniently left out his race. But if he had been white, it would have led the coverage, Well,
there's a lot of developments, Hodl. Let me inform you of them. He's a sovereign citizen.
Oof.
And he's now representing himself.
All right. I'm gonna wrest this conversation back to Bitcoin. You guys ready for this?
No.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Sometimes I like to conceptualize, just taking it back to Bitcoin. I like to conceptualize Bitcoin as sort of like a bigger Litecoin.
You need to re-implement the Litecoin logo so that it's just like, like a cloaca.
You really
should. Spewing bird feces out of it, just to really make sure.
Bitcoin costumes, you get a big Litecoin costume. You come on with Hodl.
Yeah.
I need a Litecoin costume.
All right.
Hodl's the hairiest one on this podcast.
I know. Junseth used to have way more hair than me.
I had no hair. I've never had hair.
He said he cut it all off because he went to prison, which I believe. But wait. You guys know about...
I had to fit in with a certain group, Hodl.
Skinheads. You became a fucking skinhead. I get it. You can pass. Look, what do you guys think about the fact that Ben Bernanke just won the Nobel Peace Prize?
Wait, what?
Yes.
Did he?
Yes,
One second.
2022 Nobel Peace Prize went to Ben fucking Bernanke.
Pete, 2022 Nobel
in economics. Nobel Prize in economics.
Nobel Prize Bernanke. Wait, the Peace Prize?
Wow.
Are you sure?
No. Okay.
What did he win it
I exaggerated.
for?
The Nobel Prize in economics.
Oh, that's not even a real prize.
What did he win it for?
Look at that. Oh, well.
He won for fucking 2008.
That's what he won for?
Wait, he won for like what he did?
Printing money?
Or like having an idea?
For solving the 2008 crisis.
Wow.
Oh man, you got to be really mad if you're the person who like first proposed quantitative easing, which is a thing that was proposed. I don't
And then
know, Japan
Bernanke
or
swoops
Sweden.
in. Yeah.
And then Bernanke's like, I use this to great aplomb. And they're like, haha, just for using it, you get an award. And not just that, there's like the Nobel Prize in economics. There's like a 30-year backlog of people with actual kind of accomplishments that are hoping they can get it. And they gave it to Bernanke. I think that's great. I think that's really funny.
I mean, how come Satoshi hasn't won yet? Come on. Like, if this was a serious award, Satoshi would have won it by now. You know?
We all know why Satoshi hasn't won it yet.
Yeah.
How the I didn't even realize.
Vitalik's going to get it before Satoshi.
That far in time.
How can I guarantee you they will give
you're probably
the
right.
prize to Vitalik before they will give it to anyone in Bitcoin.
You're
Chris,
probably
that's
right, unfortunately, because Vitalik has the perfect like nerd signaling where he comes off like a genius to people who don't understand what's happening here. You know?
Yes, that's partly true.
Yeah,
but I also think he's got a huge wiener.
Oh my god!
I mean, that's facts.
Photo.
That's facts. You know,
dude, that photo can't be real.
Some people were saying it was his phone causing a shadow. Those people are that's cope. Okay, just you can't cope with the fact that
phone causing a shadow. That's a cock. I've seen it. There's a big snake in his pants.
It was good.
You've seen it.
I've seen the photo.
That's not what you just said, bro.
Clip it.
Oh, I will.
This is ridiculous. But yeah, no, the Nobel Prize Committee is gonna at some point start trying to give people prizes in this blockchain shit. And I guarantee you Vitalik is like first on that list because
it'll be something even dumber. It'll be like the guys who created it'll be like Sam Altman.
No. It'll be Vitalik, dude, and it'll be like it's the youngest person ever to win a Nobel Prize in economics. And you're like,
you're right. And they're gonna be like, he created the world's greenest blockchain. It's so green.
Watch him be the first person ever to win. Yeah. He's gonna get the Nobel Prize in Peace and the Nobel Prize in Econ. It'll be the first Peaconomics prize.
I mean, they literally gave the Peace Prize to Barack Obama, who droned civilians. How does that make any sense?
Well, he wasn't George Bush.
Listen, I'm okay with him droning civilians. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Apparently, I don't know, but like the Peace Prize, why don't you give him like best?
They look like P, maybe, but not just any civilian. Chris is making a point. He says Adolf Hitler was nominated for Peace Prize in 1939 as well. We don't actually know that, I don't think, because I think the nominations are secret.
Then we can just say anybody was nominated.
So I guess maybe they would know now.
Maybe we can
Hodl. I always thought this was funny. Like, I thought it would be really funny to just start putting on your resume that you've been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. There's no way to confirm it. They have to wait 50 years to find out if you lied. And by that time, what are they going to do? Sue you for your money? Like, I did a good job at your company.
Your logic is flawless. I think you should do it.
There was a Time magazine. They put a mirror on it in like 2005, and like, this year's man of the year is you. And you're like, I'm like, all right, okay. So I started putting that on my resume.
The best part is you should take whatever promotional photo they had, where it's like clearly a mirror, and then that's what you should put on your resume.
Yeah.
Be like, I won the Nobel, so it's like they have to ask themselves, like, is this guy incredibly intelligent?
Could they give the Nobel
Prize?
Fucking idiot? Could they give the Nobel Prize to like the American people or something like that?
That would be so lame.
They will. They will. It'll be like the American people for dealing with inflation.
You know what's really funny to me? I think that the only person that could have won the Nobel Peace Prize in the last 10 years legitimately was Donald Trump.
I'd like to hear this argument. Continue.
Yeah, explain yourself, sir.
Continue.
Please continue.
Well, he was if you look at the prescriptions for like what it requires that you win a Nobel Prize, I can't think of any Nobel Prize recipient that's actually like fulfilled them except him when it comes to like North Korea, the Abraham Accords, etc. And I just thought it was hilarious because I think that he would have like been the I knew they would have refused to give it to him. So, it's like they just eschewed the one person that probably fulfilled all of their criteria for the Nobel Prize because they hate him. And that's truth.
New topic.
Hit me.
Give me a second. I'm gonna let it build. Let it build. No, I want to talk to you guys about PayPal. What do you guys think about the fact that PayPal released this thing over the weekend saying that Juneseth, you're not helping with your heavy breathing.
Sorry.
Saying that if you had wrongthink, they're going to fine you $2,500. You guys think that's just sort of like a distraction? Do you think it's noise? Do you think they fucked up and accidentally included it in their new in terms of use update? You think it's real?
I'm one thing that's always been interesting to me about PayPal is how they have the lowest fees for purchasing Litecoin in the industry, and I just find like it's a great place to purchase Litecoin from.
They do not offer Litecoin, sir.
Other than that, I can't say anything bad about them. You know,
no, give me your. I want to hear your real thoughts. All right,
listen, the real opinion is like anybody who can financially restrict you is going to financially restrict you, and they don't feel any type of way about it. This one had a lot of pushback, but the next one they'll slip through and they'll just keep doing it over and over and over again until they eventually repress the shit out of you. And financial repression is like the number one way to actually like create a totalitarian regime, because you're not going to get over on freedom of speech, you're not going to get over on the Second Amendment. So it's like you basically have to find a way to choke everybody's like ability to think about like the energy usage thing that is being promoted is like, you can't use energy for this, you can't use energy for that. It's the same thing with money. You can't use money for this, you can't use money for that. We're telling you what to do, right? So yeah, I think you should just resist it at every point. This is why we Bitcoin. Also, if you're not holding on to your own keys, if you're not taking self-custody of your Bitcoin, like, I don't know what you're doing here, because you've absolutely missed the point of this revolution. Like, if you can, you should. And that's the big thing that's happening here. It's not just about all the things we talk about, Bitcoin's programmatic monetary policy or its deflationary nature, whatever. It's about the fact that you can hold your wealth and you have all the leverage in every negotiation you go into in your life. Whereas if you're, a serf on PayPal's plantation, you do what PayPal tells you to do, basically, or Facebook or Instagram or JP Morgan Chase or whomever, or YouTube. Doesn't matter. Like, you're everyone's slave if you don't have your own leverage in the negotiation.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the beginning of the.
Thrift Fever says breaking news, and I think we need to confirm whether this is true or not to continue with this interview. P. Breaking news: American Hodl is being prosecuted by the National Association of Landscape Professionals.
Listen,
Hodl.
Listen. The NALP. That's what I refer to them as. Then they served me. Yeah, they served me. What of it? 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 They served me. I said, fuck them. Fuck them. I represent myself, bitch. Sovereign citizen.
Hodl.
Sovereign citizen.
Hodl. Is the NALP in the room with you right now?
Their process server was here 3 days ago. If you want to get real about it, they were here. Yeah, they said, hey, we have crumble cookies for you. And then when he opened the pink box, it was I was being served. And I was like, what the fuck is this, man? I thought these were going to be the red velvets that I love so much, that are like 1,000 calories a piece. I love those things.
Big lie.
Yeah. Do you feel like...
I'm just kidding. I only eat steak. I'm a Litecoin maximalist. Keep going.
Do you feel like they're persecuting you because of, your statements about the superiority of Litecoin to Bitcoin, which is...
Litecoin to Bitcoin. Landscape professionals.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think that they're after you specifically, Hodl?
This
is meant to be a leading question that has an obvious answer, but
yeah,
I'm asking it to you as if I'm an interview professional rather than just a shit poster.
Listen, they're coming after me because Litecoin is too powerful and it fucks up the association dues. That's what's up. Because I got the nation, Litecoin nation out there trimming the hedges, fucking blow drying the weeds, doing the roundup, all of it. I got Litecoin Nation on lock doing that shit. Come on.
I'm reading all the comments. Someone's calling me Morpheus's third cousin. I like that.
I think that's meant to be an insult, my friend. I'm sorry.
Well, it's if he had sex with Trinity, he would have made like a kind of like half white guy, half black guy. That would have been me. So that would have been great.
Junseth is the Morpheus that convinces you to stay in the Matrix. He's like, nah, it's cool here. It's gray hair. You should say.
Greg says he ate Morpheus' third cousin. I'm not.
Yes,
that
that's
I
a
am
fair
fat,
criticism.
but not that fat. You know, like that'd be he's a big dude. What was that about PayPal again?
They changed their terms of use so that they can basically censor the shit out of you by fining you $2,500 if you spread wrongthink. If you say anything that is quote unquote misinformation, they said that they were going to fine you. And then everybody lost their minds about it. And then they were like, just kidding. That was a mistake. Don't even trip. Don't even worry about the fact that clearly went through, years and years of red tape. But then they updated it over the weekend. And it is still the case that they can fine you for $2,500 for damages to their brand, external damages, administrative costs, and or damages to PayPal's business partners.
Those are torts. It seems like you can't just decide that. Well, here's the thing. There's a simple solution, and it's everybody do what I did. Go on eBay and buy a couple Beanie Babies. And the result, if it's anything like my result, will be that you get banned from PayPal. So then you can't even use them. So,
By the way,
I don't understand.
they've been banning people left and right for years. I always hear bad stories about them.
I just don't understand. I don't understand this idea that these people that are holding our money are legally allowed to do anything other than hold it. It just blows my mind that as an American, Americans, that there are these like other structures other than banks that hold our money, and they've decided now that they can just do anything other than hold it. You've made a fart joke. It's conveying misinformation about COVID. We're fining you $2,500. Like, what is with an arbitrator? Like, what's like? How are they going to decide this? We've seen this before. It's capricious.
Yeah, I mean,
that is not a pair of pants.
You are correct. It is not a pair of pants. And also you are correct that it is capricious. I mean, we were talking about this earlier in the show, but we live in an environment where people are propagating fear as rapidly as possible. And they're using that fear and that kind of dissension in order to, shove these kind of financial controls down our throats. Because if you can control someone's finances, if you can control someone's food, you can control someone's access to,
you grew up in America as a child, right?
I did.
Do you remember the days back before the internet and even after the internet when you could say any fucking thing you wanted?
Oh, it was so good.
I never really understood. It's interesting because I didn't understand what the First Amendment, the idea of free speech really meant until all of a sudden they tried to start implementing these rules about like disinformation and misinformation and controlling speech on Twitter. What's more, the whole idea that like Twitter and Facebook and these things are giving rise to, I don't know, neo-Nazis and whatnot. This rise seemed to only occur after they told everybody that it was occurring. Like I didn't see any of the, like the internet was fine before they got here and told us that these people were here. It was really it's confusing to me.
The big problem, I think, is it's the boomers. The boomers are the big problem because the boomers are deeply afraid of the internet. It confuses them. It scares them. They don't understand the culture. They don't understand what it is to be in the slipstream of information. And they're the ones who are out there promoting these calls for censorship of the internet and government regulation of the internet. Like I was listening to Jan Wenner, who's the editor and publisher, longtime founder of Rolling Stone, and he was on the Joe Rogan Experience, and he was propagating this viewpoint that like we need to have the government regulate the internet. And Rogan pushed back on him. It was like, you want the same government that lied to us about the reason for going to war in Iraq to be in control of the internet? And he was like, wow,
it's insane. It's insane. It's insane to me. Like the idea that I can't go on the internet and say whatever the hell I want. Like they've extended the idea of incitement to literally mean if you mention something like, that store on the corner, like it's in a place where, another store was, and it was robbed 6 times. I could see that store getting robbed too. Are you inciting someone to rob that store? Like, it's really weird. The fragility of everyone. And I have to deal with this. Like anytime you point this out, they go, oh, you're white. What white fragility? You're experiencing white fragility, Junseth. And I'm like, I'm not even white. Not even white. Fuck you.
No, it's we used to have a culture in America of, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And now it seems like we're raising an entire generation of people being basically like, words hurt more than sticks. They hurt more than stones.
Words are themselves dangerous.
Words are literal stones. Yeah, it's like, that's not true. It can never be true. It's an impossibility.
I talked about
it
this
makes
when
no sense.
When Alex Jones got banned on Twitter. I think that was an inflection point. Because before that they were banning Nazis, right? They were like, oh, the Nazis got to go. And I think that was an inflection point too. Don't get me wrong. But I think that people cared less, right? It was much easier to be like, oh yeah, we banned Nazis, which again, I find hilarious because, there's no Nazis in America. There's like 8 of them. You ban them all. Like, they don't have any power. No one in their right mind is going to be like, oh, you're a Nazi, we'll vote for you. No one's going to do that. Despite what like people say about like a Donald Trump, or now they're just moving the rhetoric to like DeSantis, like, oh, he's a Nazi. Okay, fine. If everybody they're declaring everyone on the right Nazis, and then they get to Alex Jones, and then Alex Jones gets banned, like, oh, it's just a surgical like removal of like a person who is really really a node for disinformation. And then from there they just sort of expanded it slowly until now everybody to the right of center is getting banned. And then they started moving in on the anti-war left, and so now all they have are like crazy lefties, Antifa types, and then like right wingers who agree with lefties, and that's all that these things are left with, which is really funny. But it's really a strange world we live in, where your words people can say your words literally are violence. It's hilarious.
Gold Eagle says that I have a point, but Facebook, Twitter, and PayPal aren't owned by boomers. So I think if you look at, like, recently Zuckerberg was on the Joe Rogan Experience, and he was talking about why they banned the Hunter Biden laptop store. Or they didn't specifically ban it, but they used a shadow ban algorithm to limit its reach during the election. And the reason why he did that is because he was hauled in front of Congress after the 2016 election and berated, because he was a air quotes threat to democracy. And the people that were doing that berating were the boomers. And so ahead of the 2020 election, his claim, Zuckerberg's claim, is that the FBI came to him and they said, you need to look out for specifically Russian disinformation. And when he saw the Hunter Biden laptop story, it was insinuated to him that this was exactly the type of Russian disinfo that they had been looking for. And now that turned out later to not be true, and Zuckerberg walked it back. But in the heat of the moment, in an election, these little changes, these variables, like, they really do affect outcomes when you're scrapping over a small number of votes in the middle. And so basically, like, there is a collusional element between the boomers who are in power and the people who run the big tech platforms, because the boomers basically go to them and they say, you operate like our paramilitary wing, you shut down dissent, you quash dissent. We saw this with Alex Berenson, whose former New York Times reporter, who had some very unpopular opinions about COVID that happened to be factually correct and accurate. The Biden administration specifically told him, or specifically like insinuated to Twitter that, what are you doing about Alex Berenson? So they're specifically, the executive branch of the United States government is going after, a former New York Times reporter in order to squash his free speech, right? And they're doing it, using subterfuge behind the scenes. And so it's like, you have these boomers and you have the big tech platforms, and the boomers are scared of what's happening. They're scared of losing power and losing control. The elites, not like your regular boomer. They don't know what's happening.
And I think Hodl will agree with this. Like, and we here at Bitcoin Magazine actually are for the genocide of Gen Z for this reason, because most of these problems arise out of their problematic dispositions.
I personally said that we should just add one adulterant to the Tide Pods that's happens to be arsenic, and then it would just take the problem take care of itself. Problem take care of itself.
Interesting points all around. I'm trying to collect my thoughts after this Tide Pod comment, because look, who here among us has not eaten a fucking Tide Pod
comment? That's what got you.
100%. Everything else was straight on point. Did you guys see?
Hold on, I want to ask this to both of you, because I was in a room on Clubhouse the other day, and I was talking about some of these kind of things, right? And there were people in the room who were aware of, and most of them were left leaning, and they were aware that cancel culture was a thing and it was a problem and it was happening. But then when they all started to speculate on what the reasons for all this mass censorship was, and I chimed in and I go, the reason is very specifically that post 2016, you had the election of Donald Trump, and it upset the apple cart in a way that was unpalatable to the powers that be.
You guys, to you guys.
Well, to everybody who held power. And then the entire room was like, nah, that's stupid. Nah, come on, man. Really? And it's like, yeah, that's obvious. That should be obvious to anybody who's been paying attention.
Well, I don't think I don't think most people are paying attention, Hodl. Like, it's very clear to me that most people do not have any idea what's going on. And the only time they find out about something like the censorship that's been occurring is when someone they like has been censored, right? So to them, it's a one-person problem. And that's really super common, I think, that most people don't pay attention to.
They don't see the through line between, Andrew Tate and Alex Jones.
To them, they heard about Alex Jones like 5 years ago, and then their favorite creator or something like that is then banned 6 years later, and they don't realize that there's 5,000 others in between Alex Jones and the person that did, and it's a perfectly easy through line to draw. That this is exactly the behavior. And I get this, I'll go into rooms and I'll say this, like, name 4 conservatives who've been banned. I'm like me? Like, I don't know. I generally wouldn't consider myself a conservative, but for the fact that like the left's bucket is so small that I don't know what I am now if we're not a conservative.
I think I give you 4 off the top of my head, like Milo Yiannopoulos.
Like Alex Jones. And
like,
but those are all racists.
They were all terrible people. What you don't understand, Junseth, is that they all deserved it. They all deserved it. That's what
here's the thing.
Name 4 that didn't deserve it.
No, wait. Here's the real problem here. Whatever a specific individual's beliefs are about, who is saying ridiculous shit, who has meaningful things to say, the problem as I see it is that anytime you create an environment where someone other than the person who is consuming that information is being held accountable for policing the information in order to facilitate like kind of right think, that's the problem, right? So anytime you have people basically censoring
right think is fascist. Correct think, I think is what you mean.
Excuse me, correct thing. Whatever it is, anytime, like we all need to be exposed constantly to shitty ideas. We need to be exposed to people who we disagree with because that's the only way, iron sharpens iron, right?
There's this other weird shit that's happening though. Like, so I put this out many years ago. It's very obvious to me what's going on. And it's the fact that like, this is a religion and these people that are
Wait, what is a religion though?
Well, the current leftism is
Wokism.
Identitarianism,
intersectional politics, identitarianism. Yeah.
And you can go listen. I after Bitcoin Uncensored, I did a Junseth World when Alex Jones was banned. I talk about this, and it's very clear to me that they are trying to figure out how to enact sort of these secular treatises, these secular things that religions figured out a long time ago. Mainly, in particular, the idea of redemption. There's no concept of secular redemption, right? So you have all of we actually do have a concept of secular redemption, but the wokies are too dumb to figure it out, and that is the First Amendment. The way in which you are redeemed in America is you say, I hate the Jews. And then someone comes and goes, well, let me explain to you why, like, that's kind of a bad position. And then, you say it again and again, and someone else comes to you with like new arguments. And eventually you may or may not be convinced. And
wait, sorry, how is that a redemption story?
So redemption is that the act of sin in like a biblical context is the act of missing the mark. It's actually an old archery term. So the idea of not getting a bullseye. How far from the bullseye have you sinned, right? And so the idea of like hitting the bullseye is in fact the act, like turning away from sin, hitting the bullseye. That is redemption. And you can't do that without the ability to speak to one another, without the ability to convince one another that in fact, like a person is wrong, they are sinning, and that they must come back to the center, right? And it requires the ability to argue and debate. Well, they don't believe this. They believe that the act of saying the thing wrong is the sin, not the belief itself, right? So you want to correct the behavior rather than the belief, and so they're going after people for.
Wait, sorry. The claim is that people today want to correct the behavior, the speaking, rather than the underlying issue, which is the misunderstanding of the situation.
Because they believe that the speaking is the sin, not the actual problem.
Yeah.
The sin being the belief.
And being off sides and having the wrong opinion is the biggest sin in today's day and age.
No,
Well, no, it's
no,
not
I'm
that.
saying the opposite.
It's stating that you're offsides is the biggest sin. Being
Well, yeah, that's
offsides
what I'm
is
saying.
fine. You can
No,
be
no, but
you
they're
can
two-
be in the KKK, but as long as you say that you love black people, you love the Jews, you love all that, that's okay then. Just it's the act of stating it that is the sin. And the problem with this is that like this is what we mean when we say like Judeo-Christian culture is that a lot of the things that are biblical have been enacted in constitutional or legal ways in the United States. One of them is redemption. And so the wokies don't believe this. They don't believe in redemption. What they believe, they're trying to figure out how they can possibly get to an understanding of redemption. But the only way you can get to a secular understanding of redemption is through the idea that speech is the means.
Well, in order to have a secular understanding of redemption, you would have to have the belief that individuals possess free thought, and the woke people or the identitarians do not have this belief. They believe that you are an intersectional person, which means that you are the makeup of all of your specific life circumstances, how you look, how tall you are, how good looking you are, what race you are, what religion you are, who your parents were, what your socioeconomic background was, and that all of these things come together to form your thoughts. And so
my favorite thing about this, Hodl,
pyramid. Oh, good.
No, wait, hold on. Hodl, wait, finish that thought, and then Junseth, you go.
I was just gonna say, top of the period, most hated, most villainous person is straight white man. And then, bottom of the period would be like transgender, albino, midget, poor person, like albino hemophiliac,
Asian Pacific Islander.
I regret interrupting.
I think that's close to the top.
Wait.
I mean, okay. Well, here's the thing. Like intersectionality is this hilarious word that the left has just developed that literally means
nothing.
No, it doesn't. It means something very specific. It means multivariate statistics. That's what it means.
What it really is in practice, what it really is a victim score, and people who score higher in victimhood get more status in the woke.
Hodl, it's what they're doing is this sort of like pseudo intellectual multivariate analysis where they're looking at it and they're saying like, well, if you're black, if you're woman, if you have these 14 characteristics, you're most likely to get shot by police, right? And then you go, well, what's the evidence for that? And they go, well, we have none, but it's obvious. And so there's and then in addition to that, the idea is that instead of in stats, you get to throw out these variables that are like non-cohesive, like way out of bounds. You kind of like you draw the line. You're like, well, these are way outside of the bounds. These are outliers. Maybe we're not going to include them in the final calculation. For a lot of stats, right? But in the case of intersectionality, they get to pick what those outliers are, and those outliers usually are inliers. So they're like if there's very inconvenient statistics that you give, they will just ignore them. They will say like, oh yeah, you believe in stats, huh? Oh yeah, and so they'll throw them out. There's stats that like literally will disprove their argument. But it's because what they're doing is they're engaging in a new kind of statistics they call intersectionality, where they throw out any variable that's somewhat inconvenient. And it's a very different method for throwing variables out than statistics.
Do you guys feel like that is really biased towards sort of like, the kind of like liberal, like wokeism though? Because I feel like with broadly in terms of political parties, I've said this many, many times, I feel like it's all just sort of like Washington Generals versus the Harlem Globetrotters. And I feel like
that used to be true. That used to be true. I think that me and Junseth have both come to the view that I think you can see like people like Glenn Greenwald espousing this view on their Twitter recently, which is that the upper elite left have basically seized control of every important institution in America, both culturally, like both soft power and hard power. And they won the culture war.
Can you define those terms? What do you mean when you say soft power?
Yeah, soft power is like movies, media, entertainment, culture.
Okay.
Hard power is like actual institutions. And like one of the only points of pushback you would hear to me saying that the left has control of all of the hard power in this country is the Supreme Court. And that is true. That's like a piece of hard power that the right was able to hang on to. And I think the right will sweep through and, win in the Senate and the House, et cetera, in the midterms. But the point stands is that there's this like leftist system of, basically like the PayPal $2,500 thing is part of this. It's all part of the same menagerie, right? Which is basically like we are trying to, the concept is like nudging. So they want to nudge people towards the social changes that they want to see, and they're willing to do any dirty trick in the book in order to make sure these things happen. This is not to say that the right is blameless, and certainly like these two phenomenon like affect each other, right? But basically like the left has won. They won the culture war, just straight up. There is no culture war. They won it. And now they're going around shooting survivors. And people like Alex Jones are survivors. People like Andrew Tate are survivors. Anybody who thinks they're dumb enough to, create right-wing political speech using PayPal is a survivor. And they want to kill that person, right? And they want to take everybody else off the field of play. And they want to, basically like when DeSantis, I don't know if you paid attention, but DeSantis trucked a bunch of Venezuelans up to Martha's Vineyard in a political stunt.
He flew them.
Flew them.
Luxury jet.
Flew them in a plane.
And he put them inside of a truck, inside of the cargo.
Inside of a truck, inside of a plane. And then, basically they were all calling for DeSantis to be arrested, for human trafficking. This is not a normal thing that happens. It's not normal to wish for the jail.
I actually agree with them. I actually agree with them, Hodl. I agree with them. I agree that it was human trafficking.
Because of Biden, yeah, I know.
Well, no, my point is that like it is like that is literally like what that was. That was human trafficking. The Biden administration's been doing that for like 2.5 years. So like again, this is about like those who are completely uninformed. Like I object to what DeSantis did. Absolutely. The problem is that DeSantis is doing it as an ironic point where he's pointing at the Biden administration going, the Biden administration has been doing this. So our response is to do it back. We're going to do the same thing. We find this act reprehensible. So we are going to do the reprehensible act. Right. And the left went apoplectic. But the reason that they're apoplectic is because they don't know that they themselves are supporting this exact move. The difference is that instead of Martha's Vineyard, the nicest place in America, which was the point, they're sending them to like the slums in Louisville. And they're doing this every single day. And they're doing it at like 5 a.m. flights, and they're not recording what they're doing.
Yeah. It was a very funny political stunt, too, from the point of view of, it wasn't funny that he used people as political pawns, but it was funny the way the Martha's Vineyard residents reacted to these people being in their neighborhood. And there were all these Facebook groups where they were talking about it, whatever. But listen, the point is there is not a 50-50 split going on in the culture war. Like that's sometimes purported. That's not true. The left won the culture war straight up. Like it's over. Set match. Like it's done. And now we're just,
Well, the right's going to have, if the right wants anything to do with culture, they're going to have to build an army. They've not even begun that, right? And the left won it because the right didn't know they were playing chess. They had no idea. And their opponents were playing and moving their pieces for them. That's basically what was happening. So like the right never showed up to even play on that political board. And the right just kind of
problem is the right's big problem is they only care about money. Like that's the big problem on the right. So they just go into finance. Like they didn't build tech platforms. They didn't care about culture. They didn't care about any of that. And then it all got swept out from underneath them, and they didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. Same thing with, the liberals don't care about the Supreme Court, and they didn't realize what the right was doing until it was too late. Like, for instance, like control of universities, right? Like the right couldn't care less about that.
But the reactions, the reactions are very, very interesting. I mean, I don't know that the right didn't care about it. The control of the universities thing is really interesting because that was really the first place that we saw a lot of this happening, starting in the 80s. Right. And Camille Paglia has been basically on top of this since the 90s. You can go watch all sorts of videos, like interviews she does with Bill Maher and such. You can read her books. She's been harping on this since the early 90s, saying that this was happening, this cultural control of the institution. And she's a lefty. She's a like lesbian, like leftist, like academic from Yale. And she saw it. She saw it coming. And she knew it was going to be a long process, but that this would eventually have these problematic effects. And the thing that I never expected, I think the right perhaps never expected, which is kind of, I think, what you're saying, Hodl, is the idea that these very esoteric, seemingly and utterly stupid ideas, the idea of like the safe room, the idea that there are free speech zones, this stuff,
it wasn't even conceivable. It sounded so dumb.
Yeah. It would never breach containment. Like there was this perception that college students were experimenting, They were trying different ideas on. They had just left their parents' home. They're stupid kids. They're going to graduate. And by the time they graduate, they'll have gotten it out of their system. There's no way these stupid ideas will come into the stupid culture. Like, it won't make our culture's dumb, but like the people that are supposed to be sort of the aristocratic majority, they are in fact holding up the culture in a way that would prevent this from reaching containment. They would just quash this. And what we saw instead was that this escaped containment. And the ideas were so appealing to suburban house moms in particular that they sucked them up and they started throwing them into any institution that they had control over.
Yeah, this is true. And we're now in a zone where we're living with the fallout from that culture war. And I think it's very, it's very dark. Like, without technologies like Bitcoin, I think you'd be led just like lambs to the slaughter, because there would be almost no escape, right? Like, these things are not isolated. They don't happen in a vacuum. The people, I'm going to say it again, the people at PayPal who put in the $2,500 thing, they think like these people. They are these people. They were educated in these types of institutions. They came out of this culture that Junseth is talking about, and they hate you, and they want the worst for you and your family. They want you to be their slave, like, basically.
But they don't even realize when we say like they want you to be their slave, I feel like the boots on the ground people are just like as misguided as anyone else. Like, I feel
believe, P, you're not wrong, but the problem is that the conspiracies that the left has picked up over the years, like the right is being blamed for like imbibing conspiracy, and it's not wrong. The right has like imbibed
the
an
Q
awful lot of conspiracy.
Me and Junseth were talking about the QAnon thing and how it's just a bridge too far. We were debating with somebody on the on Clubhouse about he was explaining to us the finer points of the QAnon movement.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
God.
And
QAnon.
You can tell the lizards by their hands because the thumbs are reversed.
And they're it's deeply insane. It's deeply insane. And like the guy who showed up at the Capitol in the Viking helmet, is a crazy person. But the thing is, the left thinks there's none of that happening on their side, right? And they don't understand just how deranged some of these people in academia are.
Meanwhile, Hodl, I think the thing that needs to be stated is that it started on the left.
Yeah,
the QAnon shit, like the we call it Blueanon on the right, just because but the conspiracy ingestion started on the left, and they
chemtrails, 9/11 truther stuff.
Oh,
anti-vax,
pro, all that.
Oh man, I didn't even think of it that way. You're absolutely right.
The conspiracy imbibement began on the left. I mean, there were right wingers who were like middle centrist types who like started imbibing them. But yeah, so those are just the beginning, right? But then apart from that stuff, at the beginning, like the ability to convince the American left that there were millions and millions of Gen Z and millennials who are like marching to kill the Jews and kill black people was like, it happened overnight. You went from being like a person, your neighbor was like, oh, I don't like John's politics, but he does a good barbecue. You went from being that guy, like John's a Nazi. Like, I got a Nazi next time. Like this happened overnight.
Yeah.
And it was really weird to watch because there was no daylight between believing that John was good at barbecue and that you could go talk to John, and then the next day believing that he was a Nazi. And you recount this for them, and they will be like, no, I always thought John was a Nazi. Always and forever. Like, it started in 2016. I never even heard someone say the word fascism until like 2016.
One of the clearest examples to me was, do you remember during the Black Lives Matter riots, shortly after the George Floyd video, everybody was posting the black square, and there were all of these mediocre white women on Instagram posting the black square and saying something to the effect of, right now it's just, for me, I'm just taking the time to just learn, and I'm just going to be quiet for a while. I'm just going to shut the fuck up. I'm a blonde bitch. Nobody likes me. And then blah, blah, blah. And then I watched these same people, as I knew would happen. And I was like, I'm going to wait for MLK Day and see what they post. You know what they all posted? Nothing. They didn't post fucking anything because they forgot.
Well, not to mention,
it's all.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah,
it's all virtual.
It's all virtual signaling. Yeah.
I don't understand what did they learn? Did they
nothing? They didn't learn anything. They all bought a book by a white woman.
Yeah. Did we all learn that like black people have complaints about things in America? Like, okay, are those complaints legitimate? Well, we don't evaluate that. We just know that I didn't know that they had these complaints.
Well, it's also like it was this weird idea that was like, I'm really now for the first time in my life, I'm just now thinking about race. It's like, really? You've been on this planet a long time. You never thought about it? You never considered it ever?
Hodl, I think
you don't have any thoughts
in the pudding. The reason black people are right, racism persists in America. It's all over. Suburban white women have never thought about race. They hate you. That's why they're lefties.
No, it is.
I mean, it was a weird time because there was never any evaluation. I mean, I don't know. I think that Me Too in part did this. There was never any evaluation. We've learned as a society in the last 15 years not to evaluate claims. So if someone comes to you with a complaint like, I have experienced racism my whole life and it's awful. Okay. I will take that. That's your lived experience. You're like, you don't say like, you're not allowed to say anymore. Like, well, can you explain what happened? I did that once in high school or in college. Yeah. I had a guy, he's actually a prominent epidemiologist now. He's a terrible person, but I occasionally Google his name to see where he is. And I taught him about women's periods in college. He didn't know how those worked and menopause. It's really funny for me to see him like,
you're just out here educating people 24/7.
I see him on news. I see him on news shows. And I sit there thinking like the transcript of the conversations I had with him would be the funniest. I can remember them word for word today. They are so funny. Like I taught him about menopause. He's a bit of a pedo. Anyhow, but it was really it's funny because he's like a legitimate guy.
Juice, that's what I'm gonna do with you.
So where was I going with that? Oh yeah, one day he was telling me he's a Spanish dude. And he was telling me that he's experienced racism, and I was like, how? And he's like, well, sometimes in class when I would like take a test, I would get a worse grade than the other students. I'd be like, well, did you answer the questions right? Well, no, but it's because the teacher didn't explain it to me, and I'd be like, well, how do you know that she gave it to you because of a Spanish man? Like, I just know. There's no other explanation. Like you don't even look Spanish. You look white. Like I wouldn't. Like I know you're Spanish.
Wait, but even if he did look Spanish, like why the fuck would that be a reasonable justification?
Spanish people are really white. Like I don't know. Like he's like Spanish from Spain, not even like Mexican looking. Like,
but what does that even have to do with whether one got a good like? Is the claim that there should have been a different test?
I hear this all the time. Like I have concrete examples of racism that I've experienced in my life, and they're all really funny to me because they've never affected me. And they don't have to affect you, ladies and gentlemen. If you've experienced like these stories, were like I was walking down the street and someone yelled the N-word, and I was like, "Did you know him?" No. Okay. Sounds like you walked by a racist.
I've said this before, but it's like the ultimate white privilege is just going through life as just your standard dude, bro, white guy. I know for a fact that most people are not being racist to me. People are just fucking assholes. Like everyone is a fucking asshole. You get pulled over by a cop, he's just being an asshole to you because that's what cops do, you know. But if I was black, I would assume that the cop was racist. You know what I mean?
There's no way that cops are racist.
Some people
yeah,
I would be like, this fucking racist piece of shit, you know.
So wait. So I want to bring it all the way back around. How does this relate? And I don't mean this as just like, how does this relate to Bitcoin? But how does this relate to the things that?
No, I can do this easily. So the intersectionality and identitarian politics stuff, it pops up.
I'm David Hogg.
You look exactly
it pops up directly after Occupy Wall Street. So Occupy Wall Street was the most powerful, scary, and frightening political movement, populist political movement in the history of this country, right? Like it, I mean, other than like the Revolutionary War or the Civil War, like in modern times, this was very frightening to the powers that be because every single person in America was aligned more or less on who the problem was, right? And it was the bankers. It was Wall Street. They didn't get all the way to central bankers, like the Ron Paul crowd got there, but most people didn't get there, right? But they were aligned. It's us versus them. They have all the money. They're fucking us over. This is wrong. This is immoral. This is unethical. This is this. This is that. And the left and the right were there in unison. in a fully aligned populist movement. It reminded me a lot of like 2020 when the Boogaloo Boys were with the Black Lives Matter protesters, and they were all aligned on being anti-government. It was very similar to that, except it was more powerful, right? And from that, Bitcoin, the movement, cryptocurrency, crypto anarchy, whatever you want to call it, sovereignism, it metastasized from there in the right libertarian phenomenon. So like everybody who was right libertarian, who was at the Occupy movement, they took out of this, we need to be more Ron Paul, we need to have more control of the money, we need to destroy central banking, that's what we need to do. The people that were left libertarian or left-leaning or authoritarian who were there, they took out of this, we need to gain control of the institutions, we need to become Wall Street, we need to become Washington, D.C. And so we're going to like inherit these corrupt institutions and use them for our own benefit. So basically it was this idea of like on the right, you had, we're going to turn over the chessboard and knock all the pieces on the floor. On the left, you had, we are going to steal all the chess pieces for ourselves. So basically we want the system to continue, but we want to pick and choose who we aim the money printer at. And we want to aim it at the people that we feel are underprivileged, underserved, who haven't had a fair shake.
Which ironically is when you have the infusion of activists beginning to enter the journalism space.
Exactly.
And from Occupy Wall Street, this leads to Gamergate, right?
So before we get to Gamergate, let me fill in this bit of frog DNA in our dinosaur that we're building. So directly after Occupy Wall Street, the instances of racism go up tenfold in the mentions in all mainstream news outlets, right? Because basically the people at the top figured out, the people that own all the media institutions, they figured out, and the people who are in power, that it's better to have a race war than a class war, right? And so they manufactured a race war. George Zimmerman was not a white guy, but all of the media reported him as a white guy, the guy who shot Trayvon Martin. He was reported as a white guy. He's a Mexican guy. It made no sense, or he's Cuban or something. But like, he was not white, right? So they were manufacturing a race war directly after. And if you watch how they did it, they were able to very successfully divide Americans who were all aligned at Occupy into two specific camps of white and black, or, you know, BIPOC and whatever, you know what I mean? I don't even know all the new terms, right? And then it goes to Gamergate, where Junseth's headed.
Well, not just that. In Occupy, I've heard from no less than 3 participants that Occupy was going, they had actual demands. They had like a list of cogent things, which I'm skeptical of, because I watched the Occupy thing start and it seemed kind of completely bullshit from the beginning. But the people that were there claimed that this stuff was like really actually somewhat well organized. And they said a few days in, what happened is all of a sudden they started, like, people started coming into the group and insisting that people in Occupy begin separating out by race. They started like building hierarchies based on race, which interestingly, I mean, I don't know if it's government or who it was that did this. It's very interesting to me that people showed up outside of the movement, came in, and were able to take it over with loud voices and power, because it was a movement that was decentralized, right? Which is really interesting, that there was no leader. So you have, you know, the Elon Musk show up and he says some words, and then just like in Bitcoin, everyone bows before the new leader who like showed up. So from there you have,
by the way, the reason that the movements had to be decentralized is because we've seen that, you know, infiltrate and subvert, like with the civil rights movements in the 60s, it was easy to decapitate the leaders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know the real story behind why Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, but I can tell you the story they tell us.
This was a bigger problem because, like, if there was no leadership and you could just become the leadership, you could move the movement in any direction you want. So you have a lot of these occupiers move into journalism after this. I assert that they're occupiers. I don't know, but it was rather convenient in terms of timing. And what happens then?
It was true. And this, real quick, this happened post 1960s social revolution. A lot of the Abby Hoffmans and those kind of characters, they moved into Wall Street because they wanted to get their hands on hard power.
Makes sense. So then Gamergate happens, and Gamergate is this event that this woman named Zoe Quinn makes this game. It's called Depression Quest. And Depression Quest is this word-based game, sort of like, you know, remember that drug dealer game that you'd play on your calculator back in the day? It was sort of like that. Remember. But the idea was, with Depression Quest, it simulated the reality of being depressed. You'd make the right decision in every scenario, and as you made the right decision, your character would become more and more despondent. So this game was lauded by the critics. It was just a really boring game, but it was lauded by the critics as amazing, revolutionary, incredible. It got amazing reports. It won awards. Then her boyfriend came out and said that she had been sleeping with journalists, the gaming journalists. So this roiled the community. The entirety of the gaming community was just angry. They'd suspected that there was a lot of like problematic reporting before that. This sort of solidified that belief. Whether it was a conspiracy or not doesn't matter. Zoe claims that she wasn't sleeping with reporters. Her boyfriend said that she was. The news media reports on it, and they side with Zoe. They don't report. They basically side with her and say that a bunch of these fat guys in their mom's basement who play video games are attacking this young girl who's just a sweet little kitty cat, and that she's done nothing wrong. Well, they report on this for months while the gamers are essentially protesting on how journalism is done in gaming. And from there, we have the rise of the only news organization that actually reported correctly on Gamergate. You want to know who that news organization was?
Who was it?
It was Breitbart.
No shit.
Yes. So what happens is the incels, the gamers, they begin moving to Breitbart. They start reading Breitbart news only because it's the only one reporting accurately on what's occurring. You have the rise of right-wing personalities on Breitbart as a result of this. So Steven Crowder comes out of Gamergate. You have Christina Hoff Sommers, Milo Yiannopoulos, et cetera, et cetera. All of these were originally Gamergate reporting personalities. Candace Owens as well. All of these right-wing personalities come out of Gamergate. So, and a lot of them for the same reason that, like, there's this methodology that's been used in modern journalism now, where they'll interview you, they'll be your friend, and then they'll go on and they'll just destroy you in text. Yeah. So that was really that started in Gamergate more than anything.
Wait, and what year was Gamergate?
2014.
No shit.
Mm-hmm. So Gamergate starts looking at Breitbart. That's how all of the gamers end up on Breitbart. And there's this 2-year period of basically all of these gamers being slandered and realizing that they have absolutely they start, you think about the movements that come out of this, the idea of the incel, all of these are all stuff that's introduced during Gamergate. The idea that like everyone in gaming is a Nazi, that, all these boys are just like, treating women poorly in gaming, that games need to have, less big breasted chicks and whatnot. For the next 2 years, they're getting slandered in media about how awful they are. So all of these gamers find a place in the Conservative Party because they're the party with the newspaper that actually endorses them and seems to not think that they're all terrible neo-Nazis. The other thing that happens is these guys end up getting completely destroyed. Like they're despondent. They're pushed into like a corner. They're told that they're bad people, right? So you have the basis of like sort of the incel movement. You have the rise at this time of Richard Spencer, who starts the alt-right. Richard Spencer, who was a pretty, I think he's always been kind of a very far-right guy, but he was regarded as more of a center-right type person by people that weren't reading his far-right stuff. He starts altright.com. It's supposed to be kind of a criticism of like the conservatives. Alt-right originally means those who don't like the right and those who don't like the left, right? And so a lot of people start calling
I had no idea. Wait, that's what alt-right originally meant?
Yeah, it was just it's obvious. If I say I'm alt-right, it's like I don't like the right, I don't like the left, but I am more kind of on the right. So people thought that was the case until Richard Spencer gave this one speech where he stands on stage and starts screaming "Hail Trump," and all of his all of the guys who are following him and watching him, they start doing the Heil Hitler salute in the audience. It's clear irony. They're clearly joking. It's all a joke, but this sort of sets the stage for beginning to like claim that these people are Nazis. And then from there, Richard Spencer actually, like, I don't know if he's married to a woman who actually was the translator for Alexander Dugin's work. He's the one whose daughter was blowed up in Russia, if you remember. So he has some very close ties to sort of like Russian nobility, if you will, the Russian aristocracy through his wife, or former wife. I think they're divorced now. But he seems to take this movement into a far right nationalist type movement. These kids who start off being ironic white nationalists become real white nationalists in the process. A few of them, there's like 30 of them. It's not that many. The left gets their videos of them marching in Charlottesville. Trump rises. The only newspaper, the newspaper that really propels Trump into the White House is Breitbart. The people that do it are all of the people that came out of Gamergate. The memes are built by all of the gamers who had been disaffected by Gamergate. And Hillary then, basically, I think she basically loses when she calls them deplorables, because that is like she's aiming right at the gamers, and then she goes after Pepe.
Also, during this time, r-the Donald on Reddit was, you could tell just by reading it that Trump was going to win the election, because the meme juice was there. All of the energy was there. And, the people that were hanging out there were creating some of the funniest, most controversial, craziest shit. And, this is like partially where the Rare Pepe thing like stems from too. All that stuff at the same time period. I think it's interesting. It's interesting though, because basically you have this social dynamic where the left sets a trap and then the right falls into the trap, right? Like, for instance, during that happened with the election of Donald Trump. It happened again in 2020 with the Black Lives Matter riots, where they rioted for an entire summer, and then the dumb right wingers were stupid enough to invade the Capitol and basically take the bait. And now the left has a reason to crack down on them even harder, right? Like they ignore the parts.
Well, Hodl, we have such short memories. Everyone forgets. Like, I feel like I'm like the documenter of a lot of this stuff, just because I'm watching the through line happen. Like the rise of the Proud Boys. You know who the Proud Boys are? Because they're like the center of political controversy today. Nobody's ever heard.
They're hipsters from Brooklyn.
They were started by the father of hipsters from Brooklyn, right? Gavin McGinnis. But they're not really hip. I mean, there's chapters of the Proud Boys everywhere, all over the United States, and it started as a drinking club. It was mainly a place where guys could get together and hang out and just be guys. And then what happened is, if you recall, Milo Yiannopoulos went to speak at Berkeley early on, right at the beginning of Trump's presidency, and this is the beginning of like the public persona of Antifa. They show up, people drive down from all over California, and they show up at Berkeley, and they start throwing like Molotov cocktails and burning shit in buildings. You can go look, if you remember the memes that come out of this, like Base Stickman. Do you remember Base Stickman?
Yeah.
Like they were literally on Berkeley campus for days, throwing Coke cans at each other, smacking each other with sticks. Like there were basically all out brawls at Berkeley for like maybe 3 months. And at the same time, what occurred is that all of the right wingers who would go speak at these universities would get attacked by these groups that would be standing outside, because Antifa actually would show up and attack them. So the Proud Boys coalesced as a response to this, basically to escort out conservative speakers from college campuses. So they became the target of the left because they were showing up at all of these events. And then after the event, they would actually go and brawl with Antifa, because Antifa would be trying to brawl with them.
See, that's just yet another example of setting the trap and then falling into the trap. You know what I mean?
They're all the, what do you call it? The dilemma actions.
These dilemma actions. Yeah. So like blocking the highway is a dilemma action that they took from Black Bloc in Europe. So it forces you into this predicament where you're either being surrounded by violent, angry people banging on the glass of your car, and you might have your family in your car, who knows what's happening, right? Or you're going to run through a crowd of protesters and maim or kill one. And so they're forcing you into a dilemma, and either option that you pick is going to be negative. And so if you pick the option where, you hurt the other person, then you're a terrible person for the rest of your life. If you pick the option where you get hurt, well, then you're the sucker who got beat up by whoever, you know what I mean? Yeah. And me and Junseth sometimes talk about, basically all of this culminates to American politics is shaping up, or has become, a race to put Hitler into office. And I'll get there. Each side thinks that the other side is so bad and that they are going to end up with their own Hitler. And so the reaction to Hitler is to put Hitler in office before the other side can put Hitler in office.
Yeah, you're not in a weird Nash equilibrium where both it is in fact a race to Hitler. Hodl's right. It's absolutely
left Hitler or right Hitler.
It's whichever Hitler gets there first. The right, I don't think the right has realized that they're in this race yet, but it's obvious.
Interesting. Wait, how so?
Well, the way that the left works is the left realizes the war that they're in before the right does. And the left starts enacting policies and moving chess pieces before the right even knows that they're in a game.
Left wingers this is the trap, set trap and then fall into trap. The left wingers are proactive and right wingers are reactive.
So the left wants, the left is trying to basically set up a regime here so that they can, because this is essentially where the equilibrium moves us. We know that this is where it's going. It's like either we put you in camps or you put us in camps. That's kind of like the thought that seems to be pervading their thinking in terms of moving. Whereas the right is kind of distracted right now with Trump, because Trump is not Hitler, right? There's no Hitler in Trump, but the left has distracted them. And the right wants Trump because they want him to complete the narrative. Like there's a Trump narrative, and we want to see it. We want to see it finished.
Here's the thing about Trump that I always think about. I think that Trump is not Hitler. I agree with that. I think Trump has shown the playbook for the younger Hitler who is out there somewhere. You know what I mean? And I think it's become very obvious what the next steps are for that person. And I think COVID showed that person a lot of like the types of social controls that people will respond to, how you can use fear. Like we've seen all of these now in a modern context. And we're like, so one of the things that me and Junseth sometimes debate about is like, we both see this and see what it's happening. And, you know, we debate this topic all the time. And my thing that I'm worried about the left, and I'm worried about the authoritarianism, and I'm worried about this bureaucracy and the cathedral of wokeism that we're living with right now. I'm worried about that because I'm worried about authoritarianism in all its stripes, right? And I think that, by the way, for the Bitcoiners who don't quite understand what we're talking about, like to bring this back to Bitcoin, one of the category errors that we all make as Bitcoiners is we think Bitcoin is going to, you know, $10 million. And guess what? You're right. We're all right. That's going to happen. But then the big mistake you make is you go, the world will look exactly the same, except Bitcoin will be worth $10 million. I'll have a Lambo. I'll get my dick sucked in a Lambo. Everything will be great. Wrong. The whole fucking world is going to change with Bitcoin at $10 million. And all it takes for the accelerant of Hitler versus Hitler, spy versus spy in American politics to proliferate is economic collapse. That's it. You get an economic collapse, you get Hitler, period, point blank, right? And so this is happening, whether you know it or not. And the world is changing around you. Your Bitcoin investment is not just going to be you like living the life you live in the America that you're used to with suddenly billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. Not going to happen, right? So basically, like the thing me and Junseth always talk about is like, I can see that the left is encroaching. I can see that the left is deeply totalitarian. I can see that this is a big problem. I can see that we're being ground down culturally. I get worried about the right, though, because I think the right has a higher propensity to kill everyone. You know what I mean? Like, I think that reaction when it does come can be so large.
You're so super wrong.
We always debate.
No,
about
it's idiotic. It's idiotic. The right. The
Wait,
left
how
has
so?
Like you look at the history of governments. Like the left will scale the killing. The right will have shooters. Like the right will like.
Wait, but what does that mean? Like, give
the
us
right
examples.
will have like Texas would secede, and then within like 4 hours they would have an army bigger than the United States entire military. Right.
Wait, but walk us through like how this would like. We're I feel like we're extrapolating so far ahead.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
What are the steps that lead to this?
The point is that like
shit, P. This is big brain shit.
I know it's too big for my brain.
In a world where you end up with a left Hitler, you end up with like famine. You end up with like seizing of like businesses. You end up with like all sorts of things.
You know, we're using the term left Hitler, right Hitler, like very sort of like casually. Like, can you like?
It's Stalin versus Hitler is what it really is.
Exactly. So define
more alluding to like
it's not even. It's not Stalin versus Hitler. It really is not at all. Because
you don't
like.
Think?
No, not at all. Because the idea of like, so
that's the thing. I think
I'll just say counterbalancing forces here. So like the left Hitler would look like, you know, a lot of socialist type regimes. They would, you know, grab the means of production. They'd move people who disagree with them into camps. They'd have re-education. They do all sorts of things. Like it would be a real problem. They'd kill, like millions would die under the regime. There'd be no way to like, you know, get out, right? Unless you amassed a group of people to go and, you know, rise up against them. They would take your guns, right? A right-wing Hitler's very different. A right-wing Hitler would be like someone who like recognizes this desire of the left to do this stuff and understands that the left believes that the right-wing Hitler would just put them all up against the wall, but who rises up and actually ends up being sort of like stabilizing force and says like, okay, like, you know, don't secede, or if like California tries to secede, like you can't, we're going to send the National Guard to sit on your borders. Don't shoot anybody. Like it would be a much less deadly situation. The other side, Hodl, is if you end up with like a weird left-wing Hitler, you end up with like the right rising up and actually like shooting at that point.
That's what I'm talking. No, that's what I'm talking about. Is I think
that only happens in a left-wing Hitler situation. That
so.
doesn't
I
happen
think
in
the
a
way
right-wing
you get,
Hitler
I
situation.
think my presupposition here is the way you get to right-wing Hitler is through left-wing Hitler. So left-wing Hitler emerges. He does terrible things. The right goes full reactionary, kills everybody they can, and then puts in a right-wing Hitler to be like, we're not going to do left-wing Hitler again. All right. And also, a lot of you need to be punished for the shit you pulled. Like, that's how the right will approach it.
I don't think there will be. I don't think there will be punishment. It'll be like punishment in maybe an aristocratic sense, but like it'll be punishment by like closing down CNN or like firing all the professors and requiring them to like re-interview for their job or something like that.
I think that you think that right wingers wouldn't go along with one madman's terrible fantasy, and I think that history has shown us otherwise. And I think all it takes is one guy at the top to be like, we need to exterminate. Well, Hitler.
So
that wasn't a right wing movement.
Wait. I want to jump in here.
Okay, yes, it was.
Like...
It was National Socialist for sure. Yeah. But like, I think in our modern conception, we view it more to the right.
I think that's a thing that leftists love to say. Yes, it's a ridiculous idea.
Wait, sorry. Yeah. What is the thing that leftists love to say?
That Hitler was
right wing.
Okay.
He was technically left wing. He was a socialist. I mean, that's true. He was a National Socialist.
That is super interesting. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. If you asked like people on the street, 9 out of 10 people would.
He was a Republican.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the way we view
Hitler voted for George Bush.
I think the way we view it though in a modern framework is that I'll take your point that it strictly speaking was not, but it kind of
the way it works in a modern framework is that the left has identified that identitarianism is a right wing phenomenon. And yet they completely ignore the identitarianism of their own side.
Well,
the right has like 75 identitarians in Idaho. They're literal Nazis. They call themselves Nazis. Everyone's like, stay in Idaho. Like, and you're like weird Ruby Ridge.
Let's talk about that for a second, because that is one part of the powder keg that could spark, is because you now have the identitarian movement.
What is identitarianism?
Identitarianism is just, I'm black and this is the way I view the world. People like me think like this. I'm Asian and this is the way I view the world. People like me think like this, blah, 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 whatever.
Okay.
And for right now in society, white people are not allowed to participate in that. It's gauche. You can't do that, right? If that ever changes and white people suddenly start identifying as a monolith, watch out, because bad shit happens after that.
It won't ever happen. It won't happen.
I don't think it will. I don't think it will. I'm just saying it's on the table.
I think that people need to realize that every culture has like sort of this like enlightened aristocratic class, and you can dislike that. And but that's just the way it works. Like the current group of people that are at the top that are supposed to be the enlightened aristocratic class, the reason we have problems is because there's corruption of that class. And there's corruption in that segment of like the American population, and there's corruption all over the world here. This is like, if you look at like the movements in the UK where they have an established aristocracy, a lot of people, for example, didn't want Charles, and he was sort of forced to negotiate in the background with the aristocrats in order to be like given the title of king without any trouble. Right. So we don't have that in the United States. We have a corrupt aristocratic class who no longer views it as their job to kind of protect the minority populations below.
Yeah.
We have a corruption of the Senate in that they are now voted on by the population rather than on the state senates.
I think the way to think about them is kleptocracy. We have a kleptocracy here in America.
And and a lot of
oligarchs that have no allegiance to the people that they're ruling over, and they're just stealing everything that's not nailed down.
And a lot of this demographic shit started in the 80s when what happened is politicos realized that they could find, using stats and math, populations of people that they could group together, and they could create cohesive structures, right? So they found out that black people voted in a block. They found out that like white people voted a certain way. Suburban white women, if you pull them out, they vote differently than like white men. In part, black women vote differently. So they started like spreading people into these little groups, and they try to like capture these groups. And then the leftists attempted to kind of build a coalition in all of this. And so there's a great example of this was like Stop Asian Hate. And they started talking about Asians and Pacific Islanders. Well, why are Pacific Islanders who was beating up Pacific Islanders? Like, oh, an American Samoan, go get them. You know, no one was doing that. Like,
don't do it
like
either. They're huge. They're a huge people. They'll beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, it's a bad strategy.
There was nobody beating, but like what happened is there were a bunch of black guys who were beating Asians up in like the subway system when they were like they were blaming them for COVID, and then the left took this and convinced America that white guys were beating up Asians, and then they threw in the Pacific Islander thing in there to make them feel like they were part of the coalition, so they could try to grab two parts of the coalition instead of just one. There's something like 1 million Pacific Islanders in America. There's not that many. There's like zero.
But I mean, we saw the same thing after 9/11, right? With like, you know, Muslims and the sort of
Except after 9/11, it was organic, and this time it was
the right doesn't have that. The right has like they're like Muslims bad, and like, that's very different than like Muslims and Arabs. You know, like just like finding demographics to like stick in stick in there. It was a right wing sort of Christian like anti-Islamic fervor, and it was highly exaggerated. There weren't that like this idea, like it was the same thing back then. Like, oh, look at all these Muslim people that got to worry about their lives. There weren't like Christians going out there and just beating Muslim people up. I
want to ask.
It's ridiculous.
We dumped a lot of shit on P. I want to ask P. P. Do you think that Race to Hitler is a viable read on American life over the next 30 years?
Or a great name for a board game.
Both things are true. So there's a couple of things. One, I think it's so important just to reiterate that the attempt to effectively divide people that should be all aligning together. Like if you can turn everybody against each other along lines of socioeconomic status, like class warfare, race warfare, like, you know, whatever the most effective, knife to twist is, that is the thing that the powers that be are going to attempt to use. And I think we see that again and again and again. And I think what you guys are speaking to is the refinement, the ongoing refinement of that broad strategy. It's like, how can we create these identities that we can use to basically further distract people from what's actually going on in the world? And it is, unfortunately, because of, I would argue, evolutionary imperatives, the systems that we've grown up in, it can be an extremely effective lever. And so I think that like we all have to remind everybody that like these are kind of constructed ideas, many of them are constructed identities that people that are not
I tend to think, by the way, that the distractions are self-reinforcing now. I think that like the conspiracies are the distractions.
Yeah, that's
people are so enwrapped in them. Like the left is obsessed with Donald Trump. If I go into a room and I mention Donald Trump, like you can't do it. And what's funny is the left wing conspiracies. But it's different. The left wing conspiracies have made the people that come into a room, and generally, like if you think about it in the past, when like there was a debate, you'd have a bunch of crazies screaming at each other. But the left wing conspiracies have made it so that the person who comes into the room who's like, hey guys, I'm the reasonable one, I'm the one who's going to calm everyone down, that person will immediately jump into 12 conspiracies that they believe and that they don't know are conspiracies. And they'll be like, okay, guys, look, there's a few things that we can agree on. Look, we'll agree on them, and then we can move forward with this debate. Donald Trump was a Russian spy. We all agree on that, right?
He had six toes.
They're spraying colloidal silver on us from the skies using commercial aircraft. We all agree. Yes.
And you don't agree? Well, then you are racist, sir.
This is the thing. Like everyone now has like a set of conspiracies that they believe.
I heard a great,
but that they don't think of as conspiracies. It's your point. They think of as being like, these are just table stakes. We all have to.
I heard a great term called
I myself have found myself like falling into these conspiracies. I have a number of them that I've fallen into.
Wait, so
I heard a great term the other day that's conspirituality, which is
What'd you say, P? What'd you say?
I said I'm not going to take that bait yet.
Why won't you take the bait?
I want to ask you in a second, but I want to answer Hodl's original question, which is like, what do you think about that?
I've been trying that one for a long time. I have that one written out. That one's
juicy.
Such a good one. P, I promise you the punchline is excellent.
No. I'm gonna ask you in a second. I promise I will, because I have to. It's like, what is it? Chekhov's gun. Anyway,
you gotta shoot it. Yeah,
you gotta take off the mantle and shoot it. But to answer your question, yeah, exactly. I'm gonna masturbate all over it. to answer your question, Q even, Jesus Christ, Hodl, which I think is a good one, is like, what do you think about this
Frizz up
idea?
my hair.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think about this idea of like it's a race to Hitler? And I think that is true. And I think using that term actually, it disarms the effectiveness of that frame, because
That's why I'm saying it. Yeah, that's why I like.
No, but I'm saying, like, using the term Hitler, like both people on the right and people on the left are like, oh no, I don't like Hitler. Like, no, Hitler's
I
bad.
know. That's why it's an important thing to say.
That's why we're trying to call it out. Exactly. Like,
I agree,
by the way, just to clarify, neither me or Junseth are in favor of the race to Hitler. We just think it may be an unfortunate reality that we have to deal with.
It's weird because both of you guys are texting me right now saying like, "Hail Hitler!"
Don't
I'm all
speak for me.
No, but I think you are both right, and obviously I see that's what you're doing. I think it's also important to like confront people with the fact that like we are already on that path, and to like this PayPal shit, and there's so many other things that are happening in the world today. When people are like, "No, I don't like Hitler," you're like,
I said this under Bitcoin Uncensored. Like, if you go listen to the show, I said it. We are in a battlefield right now of intellect. And there's no, like, in a war, you have someone line up over here, and then you have someone else with guns line up over here, and then you march towards each other, and then you bam, and then you can't go any further, and then one side wins, and you get to march along their path, right? That doesn't happen in an intellectual fight. What happens is you have ideas going like this, and they cross each other, and they just keep going like that.
Mm-hmm. So and they get more and more extreme as after the
stupidity.
Point,
like,
and then they boomerang back. And go back again.
They do whatever
they do. And the political parties switch the names at least.
And they like, so you have like the conservatives kind of, in my opinion, sitting there a little stagnantly since the 90s. They have exactly the same issues. You can add things to it like CRT or like, don't trans the kids, but these are all like principles that you could have like derived from their original basis from the 90s. Like if you had a bunch of leftists in the 90s going, let's cut off the penises of little boys, and you can bet that the right wingers would have opposed it then too, right? So like you have kind of a stagnant right, but then you have this like left that's moving, and the ideas of the left can only get dumber because like as they move to the left, you have this like weird ability of anybody with a really stupid idea to contribute, and they've lost the ability to criticize and critique their own ideas because they no longer allow the right to be part of the convo. So that's how you end up all the way over here, where it's like, of course pedophiles are fine.
Have you watched a film on Disney Plus that was made pre like 2000? Have you gone back and watched like Pinocchio or something on Disney Plus? Have either of you done this?
No strings to hold me down.
So when you go watch like Snow White or Bambi or whatever on Disney Plus, a warning pops up that's like, "We're so sorry. This movie is from a different time. It's deeply racist. We don't even want to show it to you, but like, you need to know what you're getting yourself into."
Hodl,
it's like,
is this you gotta watch The Fox and the Hound. You gotta watch The Fox and the Hound.
Oh, that is a fucking classic.
It's funny because I was like, I'm gonna watch an innocuous one, and I watched it, and like, I was like, oh, maybe racism and misogyny are really like real. I'm seeing the Matrix. Shit. Like, there's like, widow, shut up, widow.
Yeah, that one is wild.
He calls his neighbor widow, and he like it's all sorts of shit. It's really funny. He calls her incompetent.
Maybe I should go back and watch Pinocchio for all the deep dark racism. Because I didn't notice it the first time. I'm just gonna be honest. Maybe
I don't think it's racism you got to worry about in that movie, Hodl.
All right, my friends, we're 15 minutes over.
Okay, I don't give a fuck about your timelines. Yo, I want to read you a quote that solidifies my point about economic collapse being the catalyst for the race to Hitler to really get going. All right, I'm gonna read it to you. This is from Alexander Fraser Tytler. He wrote this in the 1700s. Okay, the quote goes: "A democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates promising the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that a democracy always collapses over loose fiscal policy, always followed by a dictatorship. The average age of the world's greatest civilizations has been 200 years. These nations have progressed through this sequence, from bondage to spiritual faith, from spiritual faith to great courage, from courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to selfishness, from selfishness to apathy, from apathy to dependence, and from dependence back into bondage.
Oh, that's just a
Yeah,
heavy-handed recap of de Tocqueville.
Ask yourself, yeah, it's very de Tocqueville. Ask yourself where in that cycle we are. And when I look at it, I say we are currently moving from apathy to dependence. And what comes next is dependence back into bondage.
I agree.
I love bondage.
Pull your crotch out of the gutter, Junseth.
So how do you
shit here?
So how do you gird against what's coming? How do you stop the storm from knocking at your fucking door? I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you the answer.
Are you saying the storm? Are you saying the storm is coming?
Yeah. Litecoin is the way you protect
all
yourself.
the way back around. All the way back around. Here it is.
Listen, you can pick up one Litecoin for $7 currently. Okay,
that's right.
If that doesn't scream good deal to you, then fuck you.
Yeah, I remember when people were talking about the Litecoin flipping. And I mean, it sounds like you're a proponent that we are still headed to that regime. Like
Charlie Lee didn't spend 6 hours creating Litecoin for you to be a bunch of fucking ungrateful degenerates. Pretend like it doesn't exist.
He didn't spend 6 hours and one meeting with the board of Coinbase convincing them to promote his bullshit so that he could make a bunch of money and they could make a little bit less money, but also a bunch of money for you to question his motives, my friend.
P, I'm gonna get that joke earlier that I got in, and at some point I told it on Peter McCormick, but I pushed out in the middle of it, so I thought I was gonna vindicate myself.
Wait,
today.
the conspiracy theory one?
Yeah, but I can't do it now. No, it's got to be organic.
No.
It's got to be organic.
No.
It's got to be organic.
Look, I'm going to say a bunch of words and then you respond. I mean, there's some stuff I believe in too.
No.
Conspiracy theories.
Look,
everyone knows that Trump has a cloaca. He has two cloacas, 7 nipples, some possums. True story. Some possums have 7 nipples. The reason.
It relies on people not knowing it's bait.
Look, I see through you. That doesn't mean we can't all enjoy the experience. We can't all partake.
The problem is that you knew it was bait. So
I know you.
He's too smart. You got to pull it with cues back there.
It was so perfect because it was
I know.
we were talking about conspiracies, and I shoved it in there, and then I was sitting there waiting for the response of like which conspiracies. And he just calls it out. Like it was so perfect. But if you hadn't
I failed all of us. I failed you, America.
I've been waiting to deploy it. I wanted to try one time.
Sorry.
I have to do it next time. It's a really bad one too. Frankly, you dodged a bullet.
Now I feel like I have deprived all of us.
You really dodged a bullet. You dodged a bullet, my friend.
Junseth's like, I was about to get your whole stream banned.
Oh, I was so that one. Like I said, I tried it on Peter McCormick, and my answer, like I pussied out P, and I go, I accepted the hydroxychloroquine narrative. It wasn't funny. No one knew it was a joke. It sounded serious.
Yeah. No, you got to go. You got to go. So
Peter, I thought Peter wouldn't be ready for it.
He's not.
I know. I mean, he's not. Also, I know they edited the shit out of that Peter McCormick interview, but that last one you did was fire. There was so many knowledge bombs dropped. You sounded like a reasonable human being, which is how I knew it was edited to hell. But
I had a joke in there about terrorism, and after I don't know if he put it in, but he goes, our sponsors. I don't know if we can put that one in. It's like talking about ISIS using it.
No,
I think it was ISIS. Yeah.
If anyone in our audience has not yet heard that Peter McCormick interview, it's basically like Juneseth, sort of like a blink twice if you're under duress situation. But he also sang a great song and said a bunch of cool shit. So knowledgeable shit, I should say. Yeah. All right, my friends.
I try not to use jokes, but in this case, I fucked it up in that one. So I was trying to vindicate myself, P. And
you got to. Well, this is clear. You both have to come back on.
You're gonna have to do it next.
We'll have
time.
Q here. You can say it, and then he will take the bait. He doesn't know you well enough, and he'll answer. Yeah. By the way, I have to ask: are you wearing pants right now?
No.
Prove it. Oh shit! Good man.
The producers have requested I have to use a computer from now on. Boo!
Yeah.
This is censorship.
Yeah, no, the computer. You're preventing me from censoring myself with terrible internet, so I am upset. My friends, all right.
The censorship.
We got to call it. I really appreciate you both coming on. This was a blast, and I feel like we had a lot of really interesting and insane points.
I'll tell you the joke off air, P.
Okay, I'm gonna insist. Stick around after we make the cut. Where can people find you?
No, don't tell him because it'll be so bad he'll head off cue from stumbling into the trap.
Oh,
next
no,
time.
I won't. No, I won't.
Don't
I'm gonna be
tell
all about it. I'm gonna be all about it. Wait, Hodl, how can people find you? Can they find you?
You can't. Hey, fuck you.
All right, perfect. Hodl's no longer on Twitter. Search through whatever podcast app you like.
I will be at
find him.
I will be at the specific Bitcoin conference, which is being hosted by Swain Bitcoin. So you can find me there if you're interested.
Good call.
I'm at most buffet lines.
Okay. Are you overeating because of your heritage, and which heritage specifically?
I'm America's Samoan.
Oh, I gotta tell you something I know about American Samoa before we go. Okay.
Oh, no.
You know how you were saying? I was saying like American Samoa, like these are hardy people. Like they'll fuck you up. Okay. Texas, the state of Texas. Okay, population tens of millions of people. I don't know how many people live in Texas. They put out 400 kids to D1 football every year. Texas. Okay, 400. Okay. American Samoa, an island of 60,000 people, puts out 200 kids.
Holy
college football. Yeah, 200.
That
Everyone on the island is related to someone in the NFL.
All linebackers.
Yes,
all of them.
Linemen.
Hey, genetics don't lie.
Isn't a linebacker a lineman? Aren't they all? Aren't they equivalent?
No, but no.
All right.
All long snappers.
With the tails, they got the tails, the Samoanism, and the Inuit genetics. We're gonna call him, my friends.
I knew a guy who was a long snapper. His father told him. If he wants to get into the NFL, he should learn how to long.
Producer Chris cutting us off on a high note. My friends, if you are in Europe and or not, and you don't mind an 18-hour flight, go get yourself a ticket to Bitcoin Amsterdam, 10% off using code BMLive. Also, the mag, always awesome. Physical print, it's in paper. Paper, that stuff that comes from dead trees. Buy it, it's awesome. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.